7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
The party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Hot here, we kind of need to make things roll here. And Digger Dog, nice to see you. And Gorgeous Gloria, Vanner Smith, nice to have you here. Vin Man, always a pleasure. Millennium, thank you for coming on in. And, sorry, I'm a little rattled here. The lovely Cat Chase is here. Yes, look at her. There she is. She says, good evening. Justin Maynard, thank you for joining us from Australia. Really appreciate that. Stephen Finnegan, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. And Thomas Fessler, thank you for your support. Great show tonight, by the way. Tom, really do appreciate that. And we got 30 seconds here, everyone, so bear with me. I know we're going to run out of time here on the saying hello to everybody. I will type it in. Hi, Apollo 11, Sun Saver, and who else can we get in here in the next 10 seconds? Sweet Donna C., Phil Minervino, Brown Dwarf, good to have you all here. Hi, TMI, lovely Jenny, and who's the last one? Super Lou, we love you, man. Great show today. By the way, guys, for Butch, horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. I'm going to tell you, this is the show that I don't think any of us want to do, but we must do it in order to pay tribute to one of the best guests we've ever had here on Spaced Out Radio. And Butch Witkowski was an independent researcher since 1989 when, along with 4 other people, he witnessed a UFO of substantial size quietly above a mountain in Tucson, Arizona. That was the day he began his investigations into the UFO phenomena and quickly became a member of MUFON and a field investigator. After moving back to Pennsylvania, he concentrated on UFO research and cases related to alien abduction, mutilations, and unexplained encounters. He was a member of the Carnarvon Township Police Department in the 1970s. He used his investigative abilities as a cop for his field work, later becoming the founder of UFO Cop, the UFO Research Center of Pennsylvania. It was on January 13th, just a little short while ago, that we lost Butch. He went to bed that night, never woke up. Our sincerest condolences from everybody in Spaced Out Radio, including our fans, go out to his wife, Peggy, his son, his wife, and grandchildren as well. Tonight, we pay tribute to the cranky curmudgeon. Lon Strickler is here. We have Sean Forker, Brian Bowden. I love these guys dearly. They were good friends of Butch's. They're good friends of this show. And to have these guys on to pay tribute to such a legend. Lon, I'm going to start with you on this one because you and Butch had been best friends for a long time. You know, you guys went to war on the cryptid world with each other, and you stood side by side in trying to find a lot about this. What was it like to hear that news that Butch had passed away?
Well, you know, Butch had been through a lot the last several months. He had a heart attack 2 years ago, had quadruple bypass, and then this year, early last year, he caught COVID, and he was dealing with the after effects of that. And, that morning I got the phone call and Butch's name came up, and I figured, well, my chief was on the phone, and that's how I answered. I said, "How you doing, Chief?" And it was Peggy. And she told me, she said, "Lon," she said, "This is Peggy." And I said, "Well, how you doing?" She said, "Terrible. Butch passed last night." And that's what happened. He just he wasn't feeling well the night before, and when they woke up, he had died. So so that, I was kind of shocked. I mean, of course, I let everybody on the team know. I let you know, Dave. I let everybody else know. And I was, it's just one of those things. You thought this guy would live forever, but it just didn't turn out that way.
I'll tell you, when I got that message from you and Brian Bowden on the 13th, I was sitting in the drive-thru of Tim Hortons and getting my breakfast, and all of a sudden I got the message from you guys almost simultaneously, and it hit me, guys. Butch was like a father to many of us in this field. And Sean Forker, I want to bring you in here to kind of discuss this, because you had a real special bond with Butch. You've been on investigations with him. He was like the cryptid father that many of us had, and we really enjoyed. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Butch Witkowski.
Well, it was very close. Butch, I met Butch years ago through Lon. I think at Phenomenology, Lon is where we first met, when you guys were going to talk about the Todd Seas case, or you were getting together to start working on that case. And then through that meeting, you just get to have conversations. We started doing radio shows together, podcasts together, and then going on investigations. And as I said when we were all together last time, you don't get to take road trips and have meals with each other without getting to know each other pretty closely, right? You have real personal conversations. You become really good friends. And Butch and Lon both, having a lot of experience in the field. Butch started in 1989. I wasn't born until 1985. So he always never let me live that down either. Kind of, kicked me in the ass when I needed it, and encouraged me when I needed it. And it was, a really mentoring, I said felt like I lost a grandfather, Dave. When I got the news, I was at work and I left. I couldn't finish the day. I was like, you know what? I got to go home. It was terrible. It was a huge shock.
It was horrible. And, Butch had been with us for well over 6 years. And like we said in Lon's tribute show last week on Friday, the first time I interviewed Butch, I remember that I had just interviewed the crypto guru Ronald Murphy a few nights before. And for some damn reason, his intimidating factor on the phone really, really set me back a little bit. And I kept calling him Bruce through the entire show. And he'd be like, "No, it's Butch. No, it's Butch." And I'd be like, "I know it's Butch. Why do I keep calling you Bruce?" And it just bugged me. But he had that intimidating factor, Brian, about him, because he was so no bones, no nonsense. Let's get the job done. But if he loved you, you were a friend for life.
Oh, 100%. I got to meet Butch or encounter Butch through shows. And I heard him, and I've heard people say, you got to listen to this guy Butch, and I started listening to him, and he came off as Butch. I mean, the Butch I know now, he was no nonsense. He was very tough, kind of like, once you're a cop, you're always a cop. So you have that there's a swagger and an attitude that goes along with it. And it was like, well, this guy knows, he's pretty tough. He knows a lot. And I kept listening, and I came across an issue or a problem, and I connected with him. Thank God for Facebook for the most part. And I explained what was going on in our neck of the woods, and if he's ever had any experience and this happened to be a bipedal upright canine, but over the years, you're right. He was like a father or a grandfather. He's a wonderful guy. And I watched Lon's program the other day, and yeah, I heard all the crap people were saying, but I never listened to that, because the bottom line is, all you got to do is listen to him once, and he's not making anything up. And if you're a seasoned guy or woman that's been in the field and you've experienced things, this guy's talking the truth. Mm-hmm. And I never doubted him from any point. And we just kind of had this, like, I text him, kind of try to text or message him, but I call him every once in a while. I had his phone number, and I call him, and it was like talking to a friend or like calling up a family member, but we were talking about some crazy stuff. And something that him and I have a lot more in common is I was very much involved or interested in a lot of the human mutilations, the dark side of the UFO phenomenon. And no one would talk to me except for Butch. Butch and I would bounce stuff back off of each other, and it was refreshing.
It really was. Lon Strickler, I want to bring you in here again because, you had so many cases that you worked on with Butch, and you became very close to him over the years. Our audience over 6 years knows Butch as the investigator. They don't really know Butch as the human being. What kind of man was he?
He was very honest and truthful. He told you what he wanted to tell you. He didn't want to tell you. He wouldn't tell you what you wanted to hear all the time. But anytime I needed to sound something off on someone, he was always there on the other side of the phone. And if it was a case where we could get together and work on it, we did that. And, when I first met Butch, it was 2013, I had been with Sean and Eric Altman and a few other folks down in Gettysburg. We were talking, we were at Phenomenology.
Yeah.
And I was telling Sean, I've been involved with this Todd C's death case for years, since the beginning of it, and I never did understand it. I wanted to try to get more information on it. I've been kind of around the edges with it and not getting much information. And I needed to find somebody to work with me, and the first name I heard was, Butch Witkowski's working on that, but you want to work with Butch. I mean, And I'm thinking to myself, well, I knew who Butch was, but I didn't really know him. And so I had placed something on the blog about wanting to get deeper into this case, and Butch read it, and he called me. And he said, look, I hear you're wanting to look into this case deeper. He said, I want to as well. Let's work together on this. And that's where it really started at. And quite frankly, we were on the phone hours at a time every day, going over and over and over all this case. And I think as time went on, even though it's much less now than not as tense now as it was then, I think we came up with some fairly decent answers as to what really happened. And, I think, Butch was a big part of that. So, of course, we do the investigating together. I would be putting it out there, what's coming up. And then occasionally we'd go on a radio show together and talk about it. But it was a case that nobody else wanted to do. For whatever reason, and we decided we were going to tackle it. And that's the way Butch was. He wanted to take those cases that nobody else wanted to talk about. And that's how we started out, and that's the way we continued when we started looking into the upright canine phenomenon here in Pennsylvania.
Lon, outside of what we know about Butch as an investigator and what we see on air, what's your favorite personal memory of him? I know there's a lot.
Well, the best part of being a Butch is being with him when you're on the road, and Sean knows that because he's been on the road with him as well. And you're not going to fall asleep. I mean, you're going to be on the passenger side, but you're not going to fall asleep because you're going to keep talking, and anything and everything that comes into his head was coming out, and it was definitely uncensored. But that was the best part of it, and I spent some time with him beyond that, and that's just the way it was. It was always interesting to be with him when he was talking to witnesses and clients, and he was joy to work with. I mean, I never had an issue with Butch. I never did, and I can't say that about every investigator or every researcher I've been involved with. But with Butch, I've never had that problem, and it was like being of like mind, and I think Sean will agree to that. And he kind of fit in with anybody he worked with.
Sean, take it away. What's your favorite memory of Butch, personally?
Oh God, there's so many. We talked about Butch not always being politically correct. Or I remember the last road trip we took. We were going to go film with Small Town Monsters for the On the Trail of UFOs, and we were talking about his time in law enforcement, and about the time he arrested a gentleman with Tourette's. And it wasn't just the story; it was the reenactment with the story. While he's driving down the highway, 75 miles an hour, he decides he's going to reenact the gentleman with Tourette's as he's driving. So it was an amazing moment. I laughed so hard. I got it on video too. I'll share it with you guys. I don't know if we'd want that out for everyone, but oh man, it was fantastic. It was just I had so many good memories with Butch because, like Lon said, when you got to know Butch and became good friends, like there was just no limits with Butch. He talked about anything, open up, have a good time, and you could confide in him about anything as well. And I get a little choked up talking about it lately because it's, I'm going to miss him. He was a hell of a good dude. One of our last conversations we had was about plans we had for the coming year, wanting to go to Cherry Springs and Gettysburg to see Lon and some other things, and so much work, Dave, that he has had yet to finish, and it's just a little saddening in that respect.
I would say my favorite story about him was our phone conversations before every show. And Sean, we haven't had you on as a guest yet, but that is going to change here very, very soon, and whether you like it or not. I'm just going to put it out there. But as Lon and Brian know, I always make a phone call before the show, a few hours, to say hello and kind of what we're going to go over. And about 2 years ago, we're going over the show, and Butch says, Can I ask you something? And I'm like, sure. He goes, why in the F do we even plan a show? Because every time we plan a goddamn show, the audience just takes it with their questions, and it goes in a completely different direction. Then we don't know where we're going. So why the hell are we wasting time talking about this? And I said, good point. And we both laughed. But that's just the way he was. Like, he loved the people. And I can't stress enough to our audience, and I know your audience too, Lon, and Brian, yours as well, about how much Butch loved being on SOR. This was an important night of the month for him. And every time my phone rang, the first thing was, how you doing, buddy? And then I'd be like, well, what can I get you cranked up on tonight? And he goes, oh, Jesus. He goes, I'm not, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm pissed off tonight or something like that. But that's just the way he was. Brian, you had interaction with him. You interviewed him. I mean, it was an adventure because you never knew what he was going to say.
Yeah, he was so knowledgeable about a lot of these cases, and he kept such the best details. And what I loved about it was the police officer kind of inspection, like that investigative technology, like way he would do things, plus the resources he used. I mean, he would go into like, who owns the property? Oh, and he give you the list of the property owners and X, Y, and Z about it. But going back to Butch, I didn't get the pleasure like Sean and Lon right there to actually know him and be there with more times with him. I'm thankful to Eric Altman for his Bigfoot camping weekend because what was great about that is I finally met Sean. I was hoping, Lon, you would be there, but you hurt your knee. And I met Butch and a couple other guys, but Butch it was just like, it wasn't like, hi, I'm Butch. It was, hey, what's up? It was like family. Same thing with you, Sean. And the stuff he was talking about, talking about a codex that he was, looking for, and he just got a copy of. And then he'd tell you who the idiots were that was actually at the weekend that shouldn't have been there. And it was refreshing because, there's two sides of this for me. It's I research and I investigate, but I also do the podcast. And I've seen so many like BS artists. It's just ridiculous. I do what I do because I want answers, just like Lon wants answers. Sean wants, we all want answers. We've seen something, we've had an event, boom. Same thing with Butch. And you just go there and like, that guy's a putz. That guy's an idiot, and he'd tell you some quick story and you just like, it was just us to the side at one point. It was great. But one of the things I definitely wanted to do, and I told him, I said, listen, I want to get up to PA with you guys.
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Bears beats The Office on Peacock. Stream every moment from Dunder Mifflin and explore bonus extras and exclusives. Plus, if you're looking for more classic hits, you can stream every episode of Parks and Recreation, 2.5 Men, and every season of SNL. In the mood for something brand new? Check out Peacock's original comedies, The Amber Ruffin Show, and Saved by the Bell. Whether you're craving a new binge or familiar fave, you can find tons of comedy hits on Peacock. Get started for free at peacocktv.com.
Get right to the romance and find the way to wow this Valentine's with 1-800-Flowers.com. From classic roses and bouquets to decadent chocolate-covered berries, gourmet treats, and more. Surprise your Valentine with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, get the 18-stem Enchanted Rose Medley for $39.99 or upgrade to 24 red roses for $10 more. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in.
And roll out with you on an investigation, bipedal cryptids, or you're more than welcome to come to where we know we have some, and you'll get that experience that you've been looking for. But you may want to bring your firearm at that point. And that's what I loved about Butch. He was that guy you can go to. And Sean, you hit it on the head, the confidence. You could talk to him about stuff and it wasn't getting out. Not that you were talking anything bad, but it was a privileged communication, and so few people today have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's beyond belief. He was his own character.
He really was, and his word was good. But you know what else that I recognized about him was how much he loved this subject matter. As we got about 90 seconds left before we got to go to break, I know many a times I had our listeners and I had personal friends like my buddy Mike who would have encounters, and Butch would just say, "Oh, email me. I'll help him out. Not a problem." Like, there was always time for people, and where he found this time, I have no idea. I have no idea where he found time to try and help everybody regarding what they were seeing and giving them advice. I know for myself, my buddy Mike and my buddy Mark, when we would go out, if we were going out looking for Sasquatch around here, I would call Butch up and I would say, "Okay, bud, this is a situation. What should we be looking for?" And he would point us in directions that we had to go. And I'm sure, Sean, he was like that with you many a times as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. You could never, if you needed information, you needed help, you called Butch. And if he couldn't help you, he had somebody somewhere who could.
Yep.
Very true. Very true. I mean, did you notice that as well, Lon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We get a lot of different cases called into the team, and we do have a lot of people on the team. We have a lot of affiliates, but there were times when, you just didn't have anyone that was at the area, and Butch would usually come up with somebody, through U4, U4 Cop and such, and so he had a lot of connections nationwide. So we usually found somebody to look into something.
Very true. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. It's a tribute to Mr. Butch Witkowski, who passed away on January 13th of this month. He was with us on Spaced Out Radio for well over 6 years as a monthly contributor. And I'll tell you, our hearts are heavy, but we know that he left his mark in a positive way on everybody he touched. We'll be back with more after this. All right, gents, we got 5 minutes here.
5 minutes.
Well, you get a pizza. No.
God, I wish.
That does sound good. I could really, I've been craving pizza for real good pizza, too.
Well, tool over to my house. I'll drive the rest of the way to New Haven, Connecticut.
Well, Butch always loved to bust my balls about food. Like, I can put the food away. And Butch always made sure there was plenty around when I was there so he could bust my balls continuously about it.
What a jerk.
I love
jerk.
it.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, always. No matter where we were at. Hey, Fork, are you hungry? When we were at the Bigfoot Adventure Weekend, Brian, there was food trucks everywhere, right?
Yep.
I swear to God he did that on purpose. Like,
I think I walked over with him at one point to get food. Like, I waited so long, I was busy, I was waiting to do whatever Eric wanted me to do. And it was just like, we all walked over, and it was just fun. The comments going while you're walking. Oh, look at
how
that
about
one.
it?
Oh my God. And it was just, you know what? It was like going home. It was awesome.
What the hell are these freaks doing here?
Exactly. Yeah. I never got a chance to see the van though, but because it was one of those weekends. But it was fantastic. You have no idea. I mean, meeting. It's not only just meeting Butch, and again, I say it. I became really decent friends, like good friends. I mean, we never met, but we were chatting a lot online, all of us, and you get a feeling about somebody, and they're genuine and real, and to finally meet them was just like, you guys, it was great. And I really wish this COVID thing wasn't here for multiple reasons, but one of them was to get back to see, hang out with you guys and shoot the shit, go around a campfire, or whatever, and just hang out with them again, possibly go on some investigation someplace, looking for some cryptid Walmart or whatever. But
thank you to Spookles the Cat, my historian, who says Butch's first show on as a monthly guest here was June 27th, 2016. Wow, that's a good run. That's a good run.
Oh yeah. And he loved doing these segments, Dave. Like one of the last conversations we had on that I found on my phone, December 28th, I just listened. I think he might have been on your show the day before, and I couldn't catch it live, but I always love listening to Butch. Always.
Oh, you understand.
His best story was, I think it was in November, where all of a sudden he started telling us about this ex-girlfriend of his, and he was going real politically incorrect, and he kept on calling her that she was the size of Godzilla, and the entire night he started calling her Godzilla, and I am trying so hard not to laugh and he just kept going and going and going. And my audience is killing themselves laughing. I got people who were like, "You can't say that. This is so politically incorrect these days." And other people are like, "Go, Butch, go. Just keep it going." It was terrible. It was some of the, oh, my God. So now I can never look at Godzilla the same anymore.
If you took... I don't know. I think you really had to reach deep to be offended by Butch if you knew Butch, if you knew him as a person. That's just how he was, what I mean? Lon and I were at dinner one time with some friends, and somebody had mentioned something about Butch's past, and, I have to give Lon all the credit in the world. He just bitch slapped him verbally there for like a few moments in a very curt, polite way. And like that, I don't know, but he just never could escape that BS. But Lon, I have to give Lon all the credit in the world. He just pummeled him right there.
Good for you, Lon.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that was about it's fun. I'm not politically correct, and I'll tell jokes at funerals. And that's one of that was a great connection for Butch and I. He just he knew. We had a totally different relationship, and I if I lived closer to you guys, I'm sure I would have been in that van, with you saying, "Can we stop and eat, please?"
I'm going to get you guys to hold on here for 2 seconds. Thank you to the amazing super chatters tonight: Nicola, Tim, Ack, Lori, Steven, Thomas ×2, Larry, Phil, Patrick, Tits, Fap, Horror, Grantavius, Jason, Dirt Road, Blue Jersey, and Ghost Dragon. I really appreciate the love here. I'm putting a link in the chat. Merle and I got a new channel on YouTube. Hit subscribe on that. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We appreciate you tuning on in and checking out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, checking out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with our tribute show to legendary cryptid hunter Butch Witkowski. He was a monthly guest on this show since 2016, and he is going to be missed absolutely dearly, not only by his wife Peggy and family, but friends like we have here in Sean Forker, Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com, and Brian Bowden, the man with 8,342 podcasts, all going at the same time. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. And in a little bit here, we're going to get to some audience questions regarding this. But, one of the things, Lon, that I looked at Butch was he really took this bipedal canine in the lichen loop in the state of Pennsylvania very, very seriously. He wanted to see one of these so badly. Maybe talk to us about some of the conversations you had with him regarding this amazing creature.
Well, at first, when he was reading some of the accounts I was putting up on the blog, and he asked me about, well, do we get a lot of these sightings locally? Because he knew nothing really about cryptids or anything. He was mostly a UFO guy. And I said, yeah. I said, we have had some in the past. There have been some older cases, but, really it's a matter of, getting people confident enough to come forward and just like anything else to report these type of things. So he said, I'm interested in this. He said, do you mind if I help out with it? Sure. You want, that's what you want to do. Fine. I mean, I was always open for him, looking into anything. Like I told you guys the other night, as we got deeper and deeper into this phenomena, he started blaming me for getting him involved because he said, I don't know what the hell I got myself into and you got me into, but this is crazy. Some of the stuff we're getting, some of the reports you get with cryptids, in particular these upright canines, he always called them bipedal canines, were a little weird, and it was kind of hard to put a finger on what was really going on. He was at the mindset from the very beginning that these were indigenous flesh and blood beings. I think he kind of changed that a bit as we got along, because as he would go out in the field and start looking at these areas and talking to folks who had the encounters, he realized that there's something else going on here. And but no, we uncovered some pretty interesting cases. I think altogether, since 2015, that we uncovered maybe 30 cases here in the state. Plus, we looked into a lot of the older stuff too, and but he made a lot of trips to points beyond, throughout the state. Did some decent investigations, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to see one of these things. He wanted to see the evidence, and he was very intent on getting answers, just like everything he did. So so that's how I got involved with this.
Lon, when you look at the time that he spent and the stories, I mean, he seemed very much blown away by people who had these encounters with this bipedal canine that were getting these telepathic messages from the creature, like, it's time for you to leave. And it was on more than one occasion that they were getting this. I mean, somebody like Butch, to take something like that seriously, especially with his background, it must have been tough at first for him to kind of understand that this is all part of the phenomena.
Well, I mean, he started realizing that there was something beyond just what what you see. It's he did start, and that's what kind of confused him and kind of made him think twice about what he was doing and why he got involved with it. But he stuck with it, and he tried to get a rational answer every time. I got to give him that. But
oh yeah,
it was getting to the point as time went on. These sightings, as with every other cryptid, is getting weirder and weirder. I mean, just like this winged humanoid stuff I've been involved with forever. And he never really understood that. But he would ask me about it, and I'd tell him what was going on. He kept abreast of what was going on, but he just... I think it was kind of hard for him to fathom with the whole phenomena. But he was really into the dog man, upright canines, the whole canine cryptid thing. So, so that's what he focused on.
For you, Sean, what was it like going out on an investigation? I know you already talked about, the travel time where, there's no way you could ever sleep in the passenger seat because he would just keep talking like the Energizer Bunny and keep going and going and going. But when you got out in the field with him, what was that like?
Well, methodical. He had a plan, and he had the gear, and he knew exactly what to use and when to use it. And actually, when there were people with us, what was the right gear to put into the right hands of the people with us? Who was going to be the best person to get this type of evidence? And there was always a plan going into things. Very thoughtful, very considerate. But with Butch, there's not somebody I've ever been around that was so comfortable being in uncomfortable situations or going into an uncertain situation. He had a very, I guess, a kind of a confident way of going into some of these cases. And it was really inspiring. Like he just had a level-headed, level sense about him. What you folks hear and what you see every week or every time you turned on it and listened to Butch is who he was in the field as an investigator. Very methodical about things.
You got to see his inner workings about the methods that he did. How long was an investigation with him? Like, take us from the time you arrive at the scene until the time you go home.
Well, and it doesn't stop just there either, Dave. Like the investigation happened as soon as he got the story, it became or he got the case, it became a think tank. He's on the phone to Lon, he's on the phone to me, on the phone to someone getting our information and our input. He schedules time to go out. We go out and investigate the area. That could be 15-minute conversation, could be a 15-hour expo, depending on, what the situation was. And then to pull back and look at everything that was gathered from it. It took him sometimes. He went through pictures and everything with a fine-tooth comb. He didn't leave anything, unlooked at in terms of evidence. Then he'd talk about that with all of us. There was a lot of think tanking going on. I think Butch made opinions. He had some really strong opinions, but he was never afraid to bounce those opinions off and see if maybe we could change his mind. We talk about, the bipedal canines, and Lon talks about Butch's, mindset of how that changed going into it. He'd bounce questions off to me about things that he had gathered, or you talked about the telepathic message of going away. How do you explain that rationally? Well, he'd come to me for the rational. He'd go to Lon for the irrational, because I'm kind of a flesh and blood kind of science-minded person. But when I can go to you and say, I don't have an explanation for that, Butch, that started making him a little bit more uncomfortable too. But he would follow it through, and he would start embracing some concepts that might not have been in his wheelhouse. And that investigation that we would start, Dave, it could be ongoing. I think if Todd sees, and Lon, you can vouch for this, still ongoing. There's still no definitive answers to it. And I think you can never really close one unless there's answers.
Well, I think at this time, when Butch had his heart attack, Brian, there's two things that he hated about that heart attack. He had to quit smoking, and he had to quit drinking.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, talk about a double whammy. That's the thing. Never mind the heart attack. That's the thing that upset him the most, because as he said to me behind the scenes, he really enjoyed a good stiff drink and a cigarette to go along with that. It was almost like, as much as, we're not supposed to promote that kind of stuff, that's who he was. He was that hard-nosed, old-school, dirty, hairy type of cryptid investigator with the sidearm on his side, a cigarette dangling from his mouth, and let's get to work, boys. Let's go in there and get her done.
That's exactly what was when I got to the camping weekend. And I'm talking to Butch after we were there for a couple minutes. We both smoked, so we lit up, and he's going, "Oh, well, look at this!" And then he has a cigarette in his mouth. He's going through his papers and goes, "This is one case I'm working on." And you see where his methodology. He creates these lists. There's another one, and he goes, "Oh, they go over here." I mean, he knew what he had and where things were. But it was just hysterical. I mean, like, I could literally see him hanging out after a long shift, going to the bar, Butch, the usual, sliding it down to him, and him lighting a cigarette and just hanging out for a little bit to decompress for the day. It's an incredible thing. We actually talked about that whole mind speak telepathy of the bipedal canines because, in New York, we have a lot of these sightings. Especially, closer to the Jersey PA side. And he asked us, he goes, you ever come across a case where people are hearing these things? I said, we have one person that does get those messages. But in our investigations, and when we've been very close within a forest where this creature is on an investigation, not one of us has gotten that message, I mean, I'm still waiting for it for Bigfoot, because Bigfoot does the same thing. You need to go, or they could communicate with you. And I'm a science guy, and it's kind of hard to, when that happens, it's going to be a mind melt for me because it shouldn't happen. It's not normal. It's not what should be taking place. But this is what drove Butch. It drives all of us, I think, and sometimes the unbelievable is very believable.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying in regards to that. And, I mean, the amount that he tried to get out there, this COVID thing, we're not going to get into the whole.
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Bears beats The Office on Peacock. Stream every moment from Dunder Mifflin and explore bonus extras and exclusives. Plus, if you're looking for more classic hits, you can stream every episode of Parks and Recreation, 2.5 Men, and every season of SNL. In the mood for something brand new? Check out Peacock's original comedies, The Amber Ruffin Show, and Saved by the Bell. Whether you're craving a new binge or familiar fave, you can find tons of comedy hits on Peacock. Get started for free at peacocktv.com.
Get right to the romance and find the way to wow this Valentine's with 1-800-Flowers.com. From classic roses and bouquets to decadent chocolate-covered berries, gourmet treats, and more. Surprise your Valentine with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, get the 18-stem Enchanted Rose Medley for $39.99 or upgrade to 24 red roses for $10 more. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in.
Politics of COVID and everything, Lon, but, this whole COVID thing really put a damper on what he wanted to do because he loved spending time in the field. How did that affect him not being able to go into the field for the better part of 2 years?
Well, first of all, before I answer that, I do want to say Butch never smoked a cigarette in front of me.
Really?
Because I'm an ex-smoker. And he knew that, and I never had to mention it to him. And I never saw Butch with a cigarette, which may seem shocking to some people, but he was that considerate, and he wouldn't. The COVID thing, we've lost so many people in the paranormal world because of this scourge. And, it's for whatever you think about it, your politics or your thoughts about it, but it still killed people. Yep. And the fact that he couldn't take a vaccine because of his heart condition, and his doctors wouldn't let him take it. And he was vulnerable, and of course he did get it eventually, and it did affect him. And he had to go, as soon as he got sick, he had to go on to this whole antiviral cocktail thing and taking pills and such. And it did affect him. I could tell it affected him. And I don't know what happened towards the end, but I think he may very well have caught this new variant. And I think that's what kind of did him in. Though, his heart was weak because of everything else. But but this whole COVID thing has really put a damper on everybody's work, and Butch too. And he was cognizant of it, and he made up his mind he wasn't going to go out until this thing was gone. I mean, he was trying to keep himself as healthy as possible, and but unfortunately, it just didn't work out like that.
Yeah, I know that when him and I talked, Lon, the big thing for him was that it was just killing him that he couldn't get back out in the field, especially after recovering from the heart attack. And, all he wanted to do was get back in nature and do what he loved. And then, as soon as he's healed from the heart attack, within a couple of months, we're into winter, boom, COVID hits, and he was kind of like, what the Sam hell is going on here? All I want to do is get out. The state's got us locked down, and he seemed to get angrier and angrier about that, and he never really got back into the field after that. I mean, I could just imagine the pain on an emotional level that it was how much it was bothering him.
Oh, it was bothering him. I mean, it was. I could tell when I'd be talking to him on the phone, and he'd keep bringing it up. I need to get here. I need to get there. I need to go look at these trail cameras I've got hooked up, and because he did have a research area not far from him where he had been putting cameras up because we had some sightings. It was in Berks County where he lived at, and he was getting antsy. But he had decided, and he was. I know the heart attack scared the hell out of him, and he tried to scale back and try to be as safe as possible because of it. but it did put a crimp in what he was doing, and he did as much as he could at home, but there's only so much you can do. And,
Yeah, I mean, I remember the last time I talked to him on the phone was like just after the heart attack, and COVID started kicking in and whatever it was, and he's like, "This can't be because I got new equipment coming, and I'm going to test it out, and I want to get out in that field." And he talked about the cameras all the time. He had these trail cams, and it's very frustrating. It's kind of like you can see the finish line, and you're like 10 feet from it, but you can't go. And because it was very unnerving, So, and I heard it, and I kind of tried to change the subject a little bit to get him off, because he kind of was going in a direction that was like getting upset to a certain degree. So I'd ask him, like, what kind of air rifles did he use again? Because he mentioned air rifles when he had a select few. I don't know what they were, Sean, but they were like a high-powered air pellet.
Non-lethals, that's what he called them.
It's all non-lethal.
Non-lethals, yep.
Zoo grade. And because where I go, see, I don't have any firearms. Where I live,
rubber pellets.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Or the, the talcum. And he was just laughing. You hit that in the nose, it's going to go right up the nostril. It's going to drive nuts for 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, that's all you need to get out of there. And that's what it was there for, because I was looking to get something where I could keep something that was non-lethal, but allowed me to go into certain places where it wasn't going to get arrested. And I said, that's what I said. I said, don't worry. Don't worry. If you need bail money, call me. That was the bail money.
My God.
I'll call you, but.
Oh, yeah. Sean, I mean, I got to ask you this, because I think I use some humor with this. Are you going to be able to recover all of Butch's trail cams that he has out there? Because I'm sure he has them hidden out there that they may never be seen again.
Well, his main research partner, Troy, he'd be the closest one that would be able to find any of them, don't you think, Lon? Like, other than that, they're lost.
Troy's been out of the picture now Troy went and got a girlfriend, so he's been out of the picture. I don't know. I haven't talked to Troy for a while, and I know.
So they may be lost forever.
I know there's a ranger out at French Creek that has been checking them for Butch, so
that's good.
I may have to check up with him and find out what the deal is. Those are the only ones that I know he's got out, but I've got some catching up to do, because of course we're going to take over U4 Cop, and you and I and Barbara Becker are going to do that, and we're going to try to expand that eventually. But we're going to try to keep up with things that Butch has been involved with, and so we'll see how it goes.
I think we have to. So he had so much work that had to be done yet, and Brian, you touched on it just at the beginning of the show. Though he was really one of the few people to discuss human mutilations, and it's such a dark, kind of sinister topic, and I don't think anybody had the knowledge about it like Butch did, because again, like I said, he was comfortable being uncomfortable in those situations. And when he was, he took I think JAR is what it was called, right, Lon? The journal he had procured, and I remember having the conversation when we were filming on the Trail of UFOs with Seth Breedlove and the crew. Everybody's gathered around Butch. Butch is talking, and Butch slips into the conversation about they go from cattle mutilations into human mutilations, and everybody's like, this stuff's real, and Butch is like, yeah, it's very real, and let me tell you some more about it. And like, you, aside from Butch's voice, like, you could take a pin and you could hear it drop by just how astonished, including myself, and I've heard some of the stories, but Butch had great recall for the details and specificities of the I can't even say that word, and I tried, of the cases that I don't have a mind for that. Like, I don't have recall like he had, and he was in the work. Like, he really, I said before, when I think of Butch, the passion he had for this research. Like, we owe it to him to keep it going.
Oh yeah, he'll haunt you if you don't.
I don't want that ghost.
You know, that
I love the guy, but
he's gonna berate you. It's like, come on, get off your ass and do it.
that was our first show with Butch, was on the human mutilations. And I remember, something very specific that he said that night, and I've repeated it dozens of times on this show, where he went into statistics with an FBI that he got from an FBI friend of his, that every year in America there's about 1.1 million to 1.3 million people who go missing annually. And when you take away the murders, you take away the runaways, the people who commit suicide, the people who get into foul play, the people who fall into the ocean never to be seen again and eaten by a great white shark or megalodon, the children who are kidnapped by their parents, and you whittle it right down to the bare bones, it left 65,000 people annually unaccounted for by the FBI that just vanished right off of the face of this planet. And when he first told me that, I mean, that was like a right hook right to the jaw, and it stuck right in my memory about that. And I've never forgotten that. I've always quoted that. And just to make sure I didn't have it wrong every now and again, hey, Butch, what were those statistics again with the FBI? And he would repeat the exact same thing. And, it's just something that I'll never forget. Guys, I'm going to get you to hold on, as we only got about 20 seconds here before we got to go to break. If you haven't heard the news, Butch Witkowski passed away on January 13th of this year. He went to bed on the 12th, fell asleep, and passed away peacefully in his bed at home beside his wife Peggy in their beautiful home in Pennsylvania. And we really are missing Butch right now. We really are, because this was his night on Strange Days, which we did near the end of each month, and Butch always loved being on Spaced Out Radio. Joining us tonight, his good friends, Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com, Sean Forker, Brian Bowden. We continue with the Butch Witkowski tribute right here on Spaced Out Radio in Hour 2 next. All right, boys, we're clear. We got 6 minutes. I'm just going to step away for a bathroom break. I'll be right back, okay?
Sure thing.
Sure. Remember, our audience can hear you, so whatever you guys say, you can...
Hi, audience.
The lottery numbers are 417.
Yeah, I'm trying to... After... Brian, the weekend he was with us, Butch was with us.
That was the weekend.
That was the weekend of the heart attack. He drove home.
He was sick.
He started having terrible shoulder pain Saturday, and he honestly felt like he had separated his shoulder or something. And he drove back from Pittsburgh to, I think he was living in Denver at the time, PA. Mm-hmm. And he made that whole trip by himself. He called me when he got in that night. So I said, call me when you get home, please. I'm really worried. Like, I don't even know if you should be doing this, but we're not going to talk you out of it anyhow.
No.
And then he had the heart attack that week. I think it was that Monday or Tuesday that he went down, and that was awful.
Well, when he got home, he called me and let me know that he got home early and that he wasn't feeling well. And of course, I was supposed to go that weekend. I had a bum knee, and then the next day, Peggy called me and said Butch had a heart attack, and he's in Reading Hospital, and So
he had the heart attack Monday because he got home like early Sunday morning.
Yeah, he got. He was having a heart attack when he was there.
Oh, absolutely.
But he got nailed, and then of course they found the obstruction and everything else, and he had to go through that quadruple. And actually, it was like five veins or arteries he had to open up on him.
Yeah,
and he was lucky. He made it. From what she was telling me. And But he was kind of laid up for a good while, and of course, you could tell when you talked to him, he was really weak.
Yeah.
But he was all ready to go. Then, of course, COVID hit, and then he was keeping himself pretty clean from it. But then, about 6 months ago, is when he caught it again. He caught it, and he told because he was supposed to come out. Jennifer and Bernadette. And
I remember.
Tom went out to Gettysburg. That when she was here from Wisconsin, we went to Gettysburg. And Butch was supposed to hook up with this. I think you were possibly going to hook up with this as well. And that didn't pan out. Butch said, "Yeah, I got COVID. I can't. I'm in quarantine, and then I'm taking these antivirals." And that was early November.
I could tell you one thing. Yeah. When he was on the blood thinners, we took that trip. I took the first road trip with him post heart attack. Mm-hmm. To go out to Southwest Pennsylvania to do the filming for On the Trail of UFOs, and being on those paint thinners, blood thinners, scared the hell out of him because he'd nick himself, and man, like he's shaving because we shared a room. He shaved and he cut himself, and he just bled and bled and bled. It took forever for him, and it was little things like that became worrisome for him too.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you could tell the whole time ever since that he had slowed down a bit, and
which is natural,
and
after something like that.
So, and I know it's bugging the shit out of him, and but even though he had the COVID and he got through that okay, but he had some after effects from that, and of course when it's interesting because last time he was on here, I was in the chat room and I was listening to him, and he was getting things mixed up. You could tell he just wasn't right. I happened to call Jennifer that night, and I told her, I said, I watched Butch tonight. He just does not sound right. I'm worried about him. And
well, when you know him as long as we have, you can tell.
I knew something was going on, and of course. Then when Peggy called me and told him he had passed, I told you guys I wasn't really surprised. I knew something was going on. So
I was surprised only because I had talked to him not long before that, and I've had a lot of deaths. We've lost a lot of friends.
Oh yeah, we've lost a lot of people,
and even family. And I love my family dearly, but man, and it's still Butch. Pass is really hard. It still kind of doesn't seem real when so much of everything he was involved in is still relevant in the world we're in, and still revolves around what we do. It doesn't seem right. Like that's the thing I'm struggling with right now. I promise I haven't been drinking. I just can't talk. Has just been it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
it's going to take a long time to get through that.
It's been tough. For everybody. I mean, I can't tell you every day I'm probably sending prayers, healing, blessing, recovery to at least 20 people. And then I'm at least 10 more people I'm saying sorry if you're a loss. But I'll tell you, this last year I lost a friend who was younger. I mean, he was like 40 years old, died of a heart attack. And then just before Butch, I lost my uncle. And, that was tough. But when I got the Butch news, there's only 3 times I've cried this year, really. And that was one of them. I mean, I didn't know him as well as you guys. Like, I wasn't on the PA squad. But
I got to put you on hold right there, man. We're going to come back in 3 seconds. Hold on, guys.
Sure.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ichthyopolist. Ichthyopolist is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight saying goodbye on strange days to the legendary Butch Witkowski. This was the night that he would appear for the first time of 2022. However, we lost our dear friend back on January 13th. So tonight we are doing a tribute show to the legend known as Butch Witkowski. He passed away at the age of 74. Lon Strickler, his best friend from phantomsandmonsters.com, is here. Sean Forker, a very good friend of Butch's, is here, as well as Brian Bowden. And gentlemen, we're going to end up taking some questions in hour two here from our audience in our chat rooms. But I want to start off by saying, with Butch, this is a man who craved the answers, but he was also satisfied, Sean, that we would never get the answers just because the phenomena in general is so strange. How is he able to keep up that positive attitude, knowing that the answers seem so far out of reach?
I think, like the rest of us, Butch loved a good mystery. And it was that continual mystery, and that it wasn't like there's just one question we have here that needs answered. There's like 1,000 questions within that question that needs answers. And I think as we're able, like Brian said, Butch was famous for his list. If we could check one of those questions off the list, I think he would have been completely satisfied with that. I don't know. And we had talked about that. If we proved that, Bigfoot was here tomorrow, what would we do next? And move on to the next one, I guess. Like in Harry and Henderson's, he says there's always Loch Ness, right? There's always going to be some mystery to go after and chase down. And I think that's kind of why Butch decided to diversify out of UFOs, too, a little. To keep fresh and get into some new spaces that are going to open up some questions, and perhaps they're relevant in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I always thought that with Butch's law enforcement background, and that investigation methodology, because I get it from some of my uncles that are police officers. They always say the same thing. It's going to make a mistake, and I'm going to be there to catch it. And I think that's what Butch was looking for, either the mistake or that one little sliver of evidence that will tie the whole thing.
Peacock streaming the world's biggest sporting events, exclusive originals, and the latest movies. This February, we've got Super Bowl 56 and the 2022 Winter Olympics. Peacock Original Bel Air from executive producer Will Smith and Westbrook Studios. Damn! Plus tons of new movies every week, including Marry Me, starring Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson. In theaters and streaming only on Peacock Valentine's Day. With all this and so much more to love, sign up now at peacocktv.com. This is Peacock. I love it! It's streaming your favorite shows, movies, live sports, breaking news, exclusive originals. It's The Office. That's what she said. Chrisley Knows Best.
It's gonna be Todd's Way or the Highway.
And Peacock original shows like Punky Brewster.
Holy macanoli.
So whether you're in the mood for every live WWE pay-per-view or every episode of Law & Order SVU, Peacock's got you covered. Peacock. Watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com.
Together. And yeah, I think,
agreed.
Okay, if we don't get it, but we'll wait. He mentioned at one point I think we were talking at the camping weekend, how, you just need that one moment. He mentioned something about the Zodiac killer getting caught, and we were talking about that. And it was a fluke. It was out of nowhere. And that one little piece of evidence was all they needed, and it was great. So that's what I think he was looking for.
One of the things that Butch wanted to do, Lon, not to sound a little selfish here, but he wanted to come grab you and grab both of you and drive up here to British Columbia and come investigate all the woods and everything in this area because, when I would show him pictures of my area or tell him about the area, he was like, man, I got to get up there. I want to see what that's all about out there, man. And, I'd always... Life is short. You never expect someone passing away, but I had always wished for that, for you guys to come on up here in his van, because he talked about loading up the van, and he always said, yeah, I'm going to have to leave the guns at home, though, and because can't get them across the border, but that's okay. We'll figure it on out. And, he was talking about it, and I really felt that we were close to making that a reality for you guys coming up here.
I think when all this COVID stuff had gone away and when everything was clear and there weren't any issues about going up there, I think we could have gone up there. I really do. He had talked about it with me. He would say, well, I did Dave's show last night, and he keeps talking about me coming up there to him, and maybe we can all get together and go up and see him and go up to British Columbia. And, God, I'd love to come up there. And so you might end up getting me up there one time.
Good.
No, I know Butch did want to come up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he wanted to see our gifting sites and where we found the prints, and he's like, we're not even going to sleep, man. We're just going to be out there investigating. I'm like, I'm cool with that. Let's do it. Let's just get you guys on up here. But but that's the kind of guy he was, Lon, that many of us don't know, is that he was a go-getter. Like, it wasn't just small talk. Like we say with old friends, hey, we're going to stay in touch. And then you never make that phone call. But with Butch, it was a go-getter. If he said something, then it was going to get done.
Yeah, he usually followed up on almost everything he did. One thing about Butch was, and this is what I really liked about him, and I really appreciated, was that if I gave him a case, say I got something, for him to look into that I couldn't, or was doing something else. And I'd say, hey, Chief, look at this. Once you take a look at this evidence or what this person's telling me, and contact them and go for, I didn't have to wait 24 hours. I mean, he had done it. He went and did it. He never procrastinated on anything. And I can't say that about everybody I worked with. He
I don't know who you're talking about, Lon.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to name names. But, he went and he started working on it right away. I mean, and he wanted to know how to get in contact. And I had an answer or some answers coming to me within 24 hours. Every time.
What motivated him, Lon? Was, because I know he was a family man first. He loved his Peggy. He loved his son and his grandchildren, and of course his daughter-in-law. He had a lot going outside of this cryptid world. But what really kept him going in this field?
I think it was like Sean said. It was the unknown, the mystery, the whole thing. He just liked to get into things. I mean, when we started working on the Todd Keys case together, he was a bulldog. I mean, tell you, he was like every frigging morning he was calling. I'd be there working on the blog, and I had to put the phone up and get on the speaker with him because he was telling me this, and this, and what we're going to do, and this, and what do you think about this? And, we're going up there and, yeah, okay. I mean, but he did. He was really, he really wanted to find answers. I mean, because it was my job to do the local stuff, to get a hold of people in Harrisburg, to try to get information on Seas, people in Northumberland, all over the state, and was trying to get information. Butch was kind of going beyond that. He was going with the witnesses, people who had been involved with the case, who had retired. that's how you get answers. And we were busy. I mean, we really were busy. But as Sean had listened to the show, or was part of the show when we did the interview on Beyond the Edge, we had a lot to put out there because, we had looked at the original reports and we debunked like 80% of what was on the reports and started going and grabbing the truth. And we got a lot of pushback. And I'll tell you the facts. I mean, MUFON was not happy with us. They did not like somebody other than MUFON looking into this case. And we were doing that. And we were talking to people. We were ruffling feathers. The family didn't want anything to do with it. There were a lot of reasons behind that. But I'll be honest with you, Butch and I didn't care. If they didn't like it, fine. If they didn't want to talk, fine. But we were going to still ask questions. Yeah, maybe people thought we were harassing them. Well, that's your opinion. I don't care about that. I want to find answers. And there were a few things that turned up and that just we didn't expect. Butch eventually, like I said before, got the actual autopsy report other than what somebody else told us.
I've seen it.
It's a full 22-page report. I mean, everything. And from the story that we were told, just did match up with the actual report. And we went through that page by page and just put the discrepancies up about it. And, and really, we both came to the conclusion, and Butch agreed with it, that we are more than 50% sure that this was an actual abduction that went bad. And the guy was killed in the process. And why that happened, we don't know. The whole strangeness about his body just showing up right after people had looked in that area and a lot of other things and a lot of nefarious things as well. But that's what that fed Butch. I mean, he became more dogged as we went on. Later, the last couple of years, we've kind of been cursory about it. We'd get some information. We'd look back through it again. But it's kind of gotten on the cold side now. Am I and somebody else possibly get involved with it? Sure, we may do that. If I see something opens up, I'll do that. And I would do that, because I want to know, but I know Butch would want to know too. And I know he wouldn't want to have the case go cold completely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're going to keep at it.
As it should. If you have something like that, but how do we fill his shoes, Sean? I mean, I realize it's easy to say, with people like Butch, we can never fill the shoes and the void that somebody of his stature leaves, but, the show must go on. And somebody has to pick it up. So, and I know that he was very interesting in you and your research techniques. How do we fill that? I mean, do you feel pressure on yourself, knowing that here he is, and you now have to kind of pick up the slack a little bit, much like a number of other people?
I think he enjoys that thought that we all have to pick up and carry on with everything he was working on. I think he's getting some sort of laugh about it, like, haha, it's on these assholes now. I can very much see that, but we'll never be able to fill Butch's shoes. All we can do is take the work he's done and kind of go on and move with it and take it in directions I think he would want us to take it in and keep his spirit alive through the research and how we do it. He taught me a lot. I think he taught Lon a lot, even though, they're more contemporaries with one another. I think you always learn from each other. You always learn from somebody. I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we honor him with it and we keep it going. There's a lot of work to be done. The human mutilations, Todd C's case. Like he was so serious about Todd C's case, he got a private investigator to help us with that case. Like that's how serious he was on it. That's how we got the autopsy report, and that's how different things came together and helped get us some answers. And like, to your question, how long do you follow a case through? Like that one's almost a decade old now for us, if not more.
2 decades.
Yeah, 2 decades
Wow.
for some of us. And it's crazy. Like I just want to make sure that we do it in a respectful way that honors his ideas, his ideology, and that we just continue to grow and adapt with the times, embrace new technologies, and get the work done.
Brian, I'm not trying to ignore you here, but I got a question for
No.
Lon and Shane
No problem.
and Sean here. Guys, I don't know what Butch's financial status was, nor is it any of my business, but the money he threw into the Pride and Joy, his van, I mean, he would tell me that he had well over $150,000, almost $200,000 invested in his own little Ghostbusters car, and then he decided that he needed a new van because the old van just wasn't capable enough of what he was doing.
Yeah.
And like I said, the financial aspect of where he got his money, that's none of my business. I know that he worked very hard for what he did, maybe made some good investments or whatever. That's up to him, and God bless him and his family for being in that position. But, I mean, no toy was out of reach for him. If he wanted something, Lon, he just went and got it.
Yeah, he had the means. There's no doubt about that. By the way, the van is for sale with everything included. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I can point you in the right direction.
That's good to know.
Yeah, but I got to give Peggy a lot of credit because she put up with a lot of that, and I know the means were there, and he was allowed to indulge in his hobby or whatever he wanted to do, and
make no mistake, Lon, Peggy was the boss.
Oh, she was the boss.
She was the boss.
Yeah.
There's no question to that.
Yeah,
so
people may think Butch was running things, but I got news for him. That wasn't the case. So Butch was allowed to do what he wanted to do. Let's put it that way.
I have a question here, guys, coming from Race Fan. Besides Butch's trail cams, what about his research? What's going to happen to it now? Has that been discussed yet, Lon?
A little.
Well, yeah, we're going to keep up with it. I know what Butch was doing, and I know everything he's been doing. So I've got all the records and everything, and I've been documenting everything that he has been involved with. So we're going to keep it up, and we're going to add on to it. And as far as U4COP and the UFO Research Center of Pennsylvania, I mean, that's Butch's baby. And it'd be a shame to let it go to the wayside. Now, the website has been down for a couple of years. It's still on Facebook. If you want to get involved with that, that's U4COP over on Facebook. Just search it. U4COP. And just go ahead and, if you want to become part of it, become part of it. Sean and I and Barbara Becker are involved with that. And we've got Peggy's blessing to do that as well, and we're going to keep on. We're going to keep up with it. And I'm actually going through a rebrand now at Fams and Monsters. So we're as soon as I get all that done, then I'm going to concentrate on that. Then,
Sean, do you see your workload increasing?
Oh, I know Lon will put me to work, and I'm sure with taking on the extra roles of administrating U4COP. UFOs weren't in my wheelhouse till I met Butch Witkowski, and he really, as he had talked about Lon dragging him into things, Butch started dragging me into this. So I think I'm going to learn a lot and really enjoy meddling into this mystery. I really do, and we're going to be busy. Pennsylvania's a busy state for UFOs, man.
It's a big state for everything.
Yeah.
It's a crazy state. That's why I loved, all you guys together, because everybody adds a little piece to that brew, and it's important. You're all over. Everybody's in different locations, but it's that western part of PA. I mean, the Lake and Loop is another thing, but you guys have a crazy part of the country there. I mean, I thought Ohio was bad, but PA is a tough spot. Getting back to one thing when you talk about filling his shoes, I was actually very honored when you asked me to come on those nights to fill his shoes. I wasn't filling any of those shoes either. I'm a big boy, but you can't fill Butch's shoes whatsoever. I kind of felt like that little kid walking their dad's shoes for a bit, and I just wanted to honor him and do a good job, not only for you and everybody over here in SOR, but specifically for Butch. So it was great, and I appreciate it, but you can't fill that man's shoes.
So if I get this right, are you, Lon, able to, is his wife Peggy going to give you his files, his notebooks and everything, or how is that going to work?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I do have a record of everything he was doing.
Okay.
What he gave me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty good about sharing that with you and making sure that you had.
Yeah, I mean, we each knew what we were doing, whatever we were involved with, and that's a big reason why I've got the blog, and then we got the team blog as well with the team website, and we've got 14 members of the team. We got 25 affiliates, and but anybody has access to the website at cryptidhunters.org. They can see what we're doing, and any case that we're involved with that gets reported on and sent to me gets put up there. So yeah.
Well, you can count Spaced Out Radio in for anything you guys need help with. I think by this point, Lon, we're all family here, and if there is anything that we are able to do, to help you guys out, to get the information out there, or even to help with some research here in the west coast of British Columbia, where there's a lot of weird stuff going on, we would be always more than helpful to take some time to do that. I mean, not only are we good friends, but I mean, in tribute to Mr. Witkowski as well.
Yeah, and I know that. I mean, you and I talk a lot, so
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, we just got to get Forker on board here and get him interviewed on a couple of times so he's rolling his eyes at me, much like Butch did, Shut up, you silly Canadian, just the way it is. We got about 40 seconds here. Brian, we haven't heard much from you in this half hour, but, for you, give me a quick 30-second synopsis on the main lesson you learned from Butch.
Be very thorough. Ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to put your nose in certain situations, and then always regroup and review it. And then you go back out again. And you ask them the same question sometimes. See what the response is. Yeah. It gets tedious, but it's genius because people aren't expecting you to ask the same thing.
It's simple, yet effective. Gentlemen, we got another 30 minutes left in our tribute to Butch Witkowski here on Spaced Out Radio. Strange Days continues with Lon Strickler, Sean Forker, Brian Bowden, as we say goodbye to the man, the myth, and the cranky legend. We call him the cranky curmudgeon around here. I'm sure he's giving God hell for something up there. Like, why'd you take me? I haven't found that bipedal canine yet. Spaced Out Radio continues after this. All right, we're clear, boys.
I'll tell you guys, the other night we did our show, and I've had 4 psychic mediums tell me that Butch was around us the whole time.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, that doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah. Just curious, Dave, were you having an issue with lighting over there?
You know what? For some reason, the last few months, probably 4 or 5 months, it looks like my lighting is flashing on camera, yet none of my lights are flashing.
You using LEDs?
No.
Oh,
Maybe I am.
I thought that was.
Maybe I am.
I was kind of getting a Butch vibe right there.
Yeah,
Like
playing with the
I'll pay
lights.
you a visit, you damn Canadian. Yeah, you know what? I do a lot of research. New York State UFO Project is my group, or the New York State Sasquatch organization, and anything I can help you guys out with. We do things nationally. We just put it into the, the New York State thing for a while. But even when I moved to PA, I'm down to Florida. Let me know. I'm there. Whatever you need from me, if I can help you out, please. I'd be honored to.
I'm always good for a good go at something. I like.
Yeah, and I'll be back up in this neck of the woods like during the summer, so I'm really good for a road trip to PA. Just letting you know. But let's start with UFOs and leave the bipedal canines to the maybe to the back end of the list.
Butch never made them sound fun. I'll tell you that.
No.
They're not fun at all,
no,
man.
I mean,
No.
the sinister edge they had to them, like the feelings that people would get. It's just not something I'd like to tango with. Bigfoot, I can deal with that. I've had my own experiences, and
Peacock streaming the world's biggest sporting events, exclusive originals, and the latest movies. This February, we've got Super Bowl 56 and the 2022 Winter Olympics. Peacock Original Bel Air from executive producer Will Smith and Westbrook Studios. Damn! Plus tons of new movies every week, including Marry Me, starring Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson. In theaters and streaming only on Peacock Valentine's Day. With all this and so much more to love, sign up now at peacocktv.com.
If you love to be remembered as the person who gives the best birthday gifts, I'm here to tell you that 1-800-Flowers.com is your ultimate birthday gifting destination. 1-800-Flowers has thoughtful and artfully created options that are guaranteed to deliver the best birthday surprise. Shop thousands of unique gifts at 1-800-Flowers.com for exclusive offers and great values. To order today, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in.
with that, I don't want to run into one of these bipedal canines.
We've got reports.
If you read the case reports that we've gotten, they're nothing you want to tangle with.
No,
And,
absolutely.
We got a couple of reports in a variety of areas in New York State and a little bit on the border of New Jersey / maybe a little PA. And they're not nice. They're very intelligent, not nice. It's very menacing. We're doing an investigation up in Thales, New York, at the old cemetery on the property, and my buddy was all dogmaned out. He wasn't focusing on the other end of it, and when we got to the car, there was, for all intents and purposes, a dog man that was 20 feet away from where we were parked. And I've always heard the menacing side of it, but this thing just sat there, and then it disappeared. And then I get the goose flesh, and I know that something's going to happen. And that's my tell on any investigation. When I start getting the goosebumps, something's going to happen. And I got in that car as quick as possible at that point.
I love that question.
Yeah. It was interesting, and I really, I talk about him, but I don't really want to see him at all.
He used to describe these things as relics, and that always gave me the goose pimples, the goosebumps. It's something ancient, and when you call it a relic, it just doesn't have such a great feeling, right?
It's been around a long, long time. And it's
but then you get into what is it, Brian? Then that's what starts leading into those questions where that uncomfortability comes in.
Mm-hmm. I know. I talked to two First Nations gentlemen here, both elders in the local band, and a few years ago they were out hunting right by this lake, and they were about 200 yards away from where they spotted what they thought was two black bear, and one was standing on its hind legs. And when he zoomed in on his scope, because they were hunting for a black bear, when he zoomed in on his scope, he realized that it was two dogman creatures, and he just put his rifle down, said to his brother, we got to go now. And this isn't good. And they got the hell out of there.
Yeah, I got a phone call coming up soon with an Algonquin elder in our area, and about a specific part of New York State that we investigate heavily. And I got to talk to him about some of the stuff that's there. And I have a feeling we're going to get some interesting information from him.
All right, guys.
Because it's unnerving.
We got 20 seconds left. Big thank you on the Super Chats tonight. Nicola, Tim, Ack, Lori, Steven, Thomas ×2, Larry, Phil, Patrick, Tits, Fap, Horror, Grantavius, Jason, Dirt Road, Blue Jersey, Ghost Dragon, Surf Jer, Kira, Steve, Magnus, and Dan, and Dry Toast. We really appreciate you. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Strange Days continues here on the mighty SOR as we pay tribute to the legendary Butch Witkowski, who is with us on a monthly basis for the last 6 years. And I'll tell you, we are going to miss him after he passed away on January 13th of this year. He fell asleep and just never woke up. A peaceful way to go. We are joined by his good friends tonight from phantomsandmonsters.com and research partner Lon Strickler. Sean Forker is with us. He's investigated with Butch. And Brian Bowden, the man with 10,333 podcasts that run daily. And we appreciate each and every one of you for coming on in. And, you know, Lon, I'm just going to announce it right here that, you know, Lon Strickler is going to be taking over Strange Days with Butch Witkowski. So that'll start at the end of February. And, Lon, thank you so much for filling in. And I know you're going to do just an incredible job with your talents and all the knowledge you have on Strange Days.
Well, I appreciate the offer, and I'm going to try to keep up with what Butch started, and I thank you.
Well, we're going to keep the name Strange Days because this is just, it's his show. It's his night, and, the fact that you would come and do that for us and entertain our audience like that really shows the class of the individual you are as well, my friend.
Well, I thank you.
We appreciate that. Number 9 has a question here. Asking, just wondering if Lon or Sean ever got a response from Butch about the constant coal burning from Pennsylvania, along with all the other high strangeness.
Well, I imagine you're talking about Centralia.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep. That's what I was thinking.
I don't even know if Butch has ever been up there. I imagine he probably has. I mean, the thing's been burning over 40 years now. I've been there a couple times, though the place is shut down now.
Yeah, you can't get in.
Yeah, you can't
very
get in.
easily.
It's a bizarre place. It really is. I mean, just for people who don't know, Centralia was a small town in northeastern Pennsylvania. Well, I guess I don't know. It's near
Frankville. Central. It's close.
Yeah,
it's close.
Yeah, it's off of Route 80, and it's the town has a large anthracite coal vein that runs underneath the town, and for whatever reason it got ignited, and it has been burning since I think the late 70s, maybe earlier than that. It's been going on forever, and the people who had lived there had to move out because, of course, it gets a bit hot and a bit dangerous with the fumes and everything. But the town has transformed itself, and it's bizarre. I mean, I've talked to people who lived there and had gone back, and it's just a weird place. And some of the paranormal activity that has been found there is pretty bizarre as well. It's almost
the witch
like heightened. It's like it's heightened everything that goes on there. And I don't know, maybe Sean knows more about it.
Yeah, you told it, fair enough. Well, you got to take some of the paranormal events that happened there as legitimate paranormal activities, but you also got to take a lot of it with a grain of salt because it is a, hangout for youngsters that like to go and have a good time and not always, act in a civilized way. I hear stories of a witch chasing people out of there and just different strange phenomena that happen, shadow people. I mean, I think it was the basis for Centralia was the basis for the city in Silent Hill.
I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's got some pop cultural stability now, too. I mean, it's the event that caused Centralia to burn wasn't supernatural. It was super stupid. But it's going to burn for, I think they said over 125 years it'll burn.
It'll have to burn its own self out because they tried to stop it. And
they did, absolutely.
Possible.
I love this comment by Famp in our chat room. Butch passed away quietly and peacefully in his sleep because the Grim Reaper wanted no part of him. I mean,
I believe that.
True.
100%.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just the type of guy he was. What made him, Sean, such an intimidating force that people really felt that they had to try and get the best of him?
Well, he was a bigger fella. He was taller, kind of, good frame on him. Put on a weight towards the, the latter years. I'm going to get my shots at him about the weight. If he likes to get after me.
Good.
But he, and he was just very direct. Even if you took the physical attributes away, he had a very direct way about him. And he wasn't shy about his opinions. I don't think he was a bully or he was bullish by any means, but he was somebody that just didn't take people's bull crap if you tried to give it to him. And that, coupled with the physical presence, I think created the mythos that was Butch Witkowski, right? When you got to know him, there was no real intimidation factor. He was just one of the nicest, most loving guys you'd ever want to be around. Like, I had like a familial bond with him because you could talk to Butch about anything, and just kind of, like I said, that those characteristics just kind of built that personality around him. And he'd knock someone on their ass if they came after him. I had no questions about that. It would happen.
Very true, but Lon, you kind of touched on this earlier, that there were people in this world that really wanted to see Butch fail, and they would do and say whatever it was possible, in order to kind of discredit who he was. Why did that happen? Because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would go and stir up crap on other people, even though he may call them out.
When it came to doing his research and getting involved with cases, he didn't pull punches and he didn't toe the line. And that's eventually why he left MUFON, in particular MUFON in Pennsylvania, because there were literally a few assholes there that were just trying to screw things up and have royally screwed things up since then. And they took exception to Butch and his style of investigating and the way he did it, and they did everything they could to discredit anybody that was around him. That includes me. And I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming before I even met Butch, If I got involved with him, they warned me already. I mean, you're going to hear it. And, well, I was looking for answers. And Sean and I know the people in particular who we're talking about. And it has continued to this day. And I do have one exception and one good thing about this. Nobody's going to be doing a tribute about them when they pass, as opposed to what's going on with Butch.
How about it?
And I know that pisses them off, and that's good.
Yeah. I talked to Butch about my problems with MUFON, And it's and we basically agree there are some really good people in there that are trying to get answers and trying to do their job, but the politics and the bureaucracy is killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to be part of the fraternity, or do you want to be part of the actual group that's investigating it? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that group thought goes into that. I know it was one of the big problems he had was the nonsense that went on in the organizations that took it away from its mission.
Mm-hmm. Counterproductive.
And, Lon said it was just a way to try to discredit Butch before he really got out of the gate and started building up steam and momentum. The problem is he already had it. He just didn't have to, go to everybody's conferences and make himself out to be the know-it-all of everything. That just wasn't Butch. He went to some conferences. He did his presentations. But when you left listening to one of his presentations, you didn't have any question about what the man was talking to you about or the validity of the statements he was making when he did it. Not everybody had that same level of gravitas as Butch did, right? Because he put the work in. And oftentimes when you start that work, even I was warned, hey, be careful getting involved with that Butch Witkowski. He's a fraud. I'm like, oh, well, that's fine for you to say. Say it to him. First of all, you probably won't, and if you do, you're half stupid if you want to pull that route. But I base my opinion off all the interactions I've ever had with Butch, which were nothing but pleasant. And did he put me in my place? Absolutely. Did he tell me when I was wrong? Absolutely. But we had that mutual respect, and I love the guy.
This is what got Butch into a bind with MUFON and a lot of the ufology world from the very beginning. He went to a national conference, an international conference at MUFON. I don't know I forget what year it was, but it's on. You can find it on video. He gave a presentation of the Todd Siege case and what he knew at the time. And he really got pushback on it because, look, MUFON is cool for the nuts and bolts thing as far as with spacecraft and whatever, the phenomena of UFOs. But when it comes to entities and anything else associated with ufology, they back away from it. And they don't like when members come forward and start bucking the trend or, and that's what happened. And ever since he did that conference, that's when he started getting all this pushback and people trying to dig into his life and calling him a liar and this and that. I was warned and I told people, I don't care. I don't care what you say. If he's got information that's going to help find the truth, then I'm going to get involved. And I found out when I started working with Butch, he was very serious. He warned me of all the crap he was getting. He warned me of all the pushback I could find, but I told him I didn't care, and and we worked together, and I'm all the better for it.
The question I have about it is, why didn't any of this come out when he was working with MUFON? Why didn't anybody challenge his credentials before he became a member of that organization?
Well, exactly.
Or why were you a member of the STAR team and all these other, high-profile statuses of MUFON, and nobody vetted your credentials then? Like, come off it. That's more ridiculous in itself as opposed to this man lying about his own past. And it's in his obituary, for crying out loud. What department he was working with.
The problem you have in a lot of these fields, be it MUFON or any paranormal field, is you got a select group of individuals, the boys clicky club or boys girls club, whatever it is, and they don't want to share the sandbox with you.
Mm-mm.
But what they don't realize is the sandbox is huge, and we're going to go build our own sandcastles, and we're going to make friends with other people and network, and we're going to change our, provide information to each other, and we're going to get the answers. And they don't like that because they want to. It's an elitist type of mentality, from them, and it doesn't matter what new kind of group comes out, to the Stars Academy, wink, wink. It's another one like that, and there's no way Butch would have ever fit that mold. And we talked about this all the time, and it just, you're paying money, you're joining up, you're giving your time, your energy, and they treat you like a dog. It's not worth it. I'll do my own research. I don't need you.
How did he afford the van? He wasn't paying dues. That's
That's
how he afforded the van.
That is great. Yep.
Gentlemen, I want to do something special here for a moment here. And, for our audience here, Lon, we shared these with you on your show here the other night that we did. But these are some great cartoons that our good man, Dirty Filth, on our website, spacedoutradio.com, had built. And he always used Butch as a character. And I think it would be a great time to show our audience on YouTube and Twitch and our radio audience. You could go to our Spaced Out Radio website. And, this was like a match game, the first one, describing, all the characters that were kind of around that Filth would make. And, there's Butch Witkowski wearing the yellow shirt with the handlebar mustache and the glasses and the balding, pointy head that he had. I think Filth captured him absolutely perfectly in regards to it. But I mean, the professionalism of Filth, trying to get Butch in there and trying to, yell at Bigfoot to put tents down and make things happen. It was just unbelievable, this little piece of humor that we had to have fun. And I know Filth used to send all of these cartoons over to Butch as well. So this one reads, "Thank you for buying a $5 subscription, everyone. I bet some goof-off is bent out of shape over the numbers." And there's Butch in the background in his blue jeans and his work boots, standing beside Alex Mistretta, who only investigates with his shirt off. So that's kind of where that kind of came from. And, and his leather chaps, that's for sure. But, I mean, some of the art that Filth really captured, that really captivated the show here, is just incredible. And I don't know how he did it, but, I mean, here's one with Butch where it was a round table. And for some reason, this happened about 4 or 5 months ago, or in January 2021, where I made a stupid comment about Butch bringing an abacus with him because he was talking about something to do with mathematics and Sasquatch and the canines. And I said, "What's with the abacus, Butch?" And Filth has Butch saying, "Sometimes you just have to go back to basics. Trust me on this, Dave." And I don't know. I mean, Filth is just screwed up in the first place, but here's a good one where Butch has the abacus set up, and he goes, "That should do it." I say, "What should do it?" "This should draw Sasquatch out of hiding." "How so, Butch?" They are curious, and I doubt they've seen an abacus before. "If all else fails, we could try some beer," I say. And then in the background, you have Sasquatch, looking at us making these stupid comments to each other. But Filth was brilliant in capturing Butch's mode. And here's one of my favorites that he put out, where last year during the winter, I slipped really, really bad. And I literally jammed my back, and I was in so much pain. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do a show that night with him, because I didn't know if I was going to go to the hospital. So Filth put me in a mummy suit that reads, "I slipped on some ice and hurt myself. I am old." And then Butch kind of, and this is during the show, I said that. "I slipped on some ice and I hurt myself. I'm old." And Butch all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes up with the one-liner, "You ain't that old, Dave. I have socks older than you." But probably his best piece of work is up next. And this one gets me each and every time, because I think Dirty Filth.
Welcome back, Bayside.
They're taking school spirit
The fun's just getting started.
to the max.
This is gonna be awesome.
Saved by the Bell. New season streaming now.
Let's do this, baby.
Only on Peacock. 7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now. Only on Peacock.
Really captured the moment here, and he drew this for us on Spaced Out Radio when we found out about Butch's passing, and that is this one right here, where I'm just going to switch it over here for a second, And where is it here? Hold on, guys. Here it is. And it's this one right here, which says, "See you later, Dave. Catch you on the flip side." And it's Butch with his suitcase being beamed up by a UFO as he heads up to the heavens above. I mean, I don't know if this is the first time I'm actually looking at this cartoon and actually not crying. And, but it just goes to show the impact that this beautiful, beautiful man had on all of us. And, whether people loved him or hated him or whatever, we didn't care. We just wanted to be friends with such a beautiful legend and a beautiful human being. And Lon, I'm going to ask you this as we kind of, have about 4 minutes left, and I want you to take your time if you don't mind. But for you, what are you going to miss about Butch Witkowski?
Well, the biggest thing I'm going to miss is his availability. I mean, he's a sounding board on anything I want to talk about, and he was always there. I mean, I can't say that anymore now. I mean, somebody that I can always rely on to give me an interpretation or their thoughts on something. And he was very giving. We never had a crossword with each other. I know I have had to frustrate him a few times, but he never got into it with me. He was, like I said, he was always available and always giving. And, I saw that with him, with other people as well. And, I'm going to miss him tremendously.
Me too. Sean, how about for you? What's your favorite memory of Butch? What will you miss? What will you miss?
The road. I'm going to miss the learnings on the road trips. Just being able to have that time to talk about, didn't even have to be about UFOs, Bigfoot, just the learning tree, life. Again, he was like a grandfather to me. I'm going to miss him like you wouldn't believe. It's going to take a while to get over it and get over the loss, but he's with us. Just that warmth that he had about him.
That is very true. How about for you, Brian?
Like Lon said, the availability if you had an issue or a question, especially if something strange happened on a case or you got some information, and someone to run that back and forth with, because they'll tell you if you were being stupid about something or there's something worth really looking into it. And he actually, it was nice to be able to give him something every once in a while. That accessibility. And, I got to be honest, I'm going to miss seeing you going bonkers too, Dave, when you really got him worked up. That was awesome. I just used to love it. You were like, yes, he's doing it.
Oh, I would fist pump. I would absolutely fist pump. And, I'm going to just kind of line something up here for all of you guys. These were my final words to our good friend, Butch Witkowski. This goes back to December 27th of this year. And let's just play it through.
Feet. We're not saying he walked down the road a mile. It was 50 feet away from the front porch. And they saw him. Never heard anything. Just gone.
It's good times, people. Comments are coming in. If you could read the comments there. Yeah. Lots of love for you, man. Lots of love for you.
Oh, sugar bridges. Okay. Have a good New Year, my man.
You too, buddy.
You need anything? And Lon's going to send you some photographs.
Yeah, I actually booked Lon tonight for January 10th.
Cool.
So, yeah, I did get what Lon sent me.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Stay healthy, my friend.
you
If
too.
you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.
Bye. Butch Witkowski, everyone. Gotta love him. Gotta love him.
That laugh.
Gentlemen, thank you for a great Spaced Out Radio tribute to our friend Butch Witkowski, Brian Bowden, Sean Forker, Lon Strickler. We'll be back with Swamp Dweller and the Swamp and Fedora John on Spaced Out Radio. Thanks, boys.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Take care, Dave, and
Good job.
you know, need anything, let me know.
Ditto.
Same
right.
thing.
Call me
We're
if you
around.
need
Reach out, man.
Call me if you need bail money, boys.
You betcha.
You got it.
Have a
Take
good
care
one.
now, y'all.
Night,
care.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
I'll be right back. I just got to go pull myself together. Hi, lovely Lavira. How are you? Zune, I saw you in here. How you doing? thank you for the compliments, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. I do. Some good news here. Merle and I have started a brand new YouTube channel called Canada's Great Unknown. I've put the link in the chat room here. And we have started our own Canadian Creepypasta channel. And with that, you guys can hear some creepy, spooky stories that we have collected from around Canada, and all of them are true stories that we are able to... Brian, you are way too kind, Brian. Way too kind. All of them, the stories are creepypasta stories that we have collected over time. Hi, gorgeous Stephanie Jackson. How are you? And thank you for joining us. So we'd love it if you go click on the link. I'll put it up again and hit subscribe. And you know, if you have any, if you have been to Canada or are Canadian and you have any spooky stories, you can go to our channel. Our email is on there, canada's.greatunknown@gmail.com. We'd love to put your story up on our channel. Also, Las Vegas, April 22nd to 24th. Don't forget, the first 50 people get swag bags. We're going to be doing it at the Golden Nugget on Fremont Street. We definitely want all of you guys with us. And here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Try us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing we ask for in return is hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ichthyopolist. Ichthyopolist is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Spaced Out Radio. As we head into the swamp, our main man, Swamp Dweller, from the YouTube channel Swamp Dweller Reads, has another creepy tale to share with you.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp.
Being a park ranger is a passion of mine. I love the idea of being with nature as much as I enjoy the idea of helping others connect with such things. I've been doing this job for about 14 years and I am from Texas. I work around the state and I work in many parks. I've been blessed to be able to do what I love since finishing college. In all my years of doing this job, I've seen a lot of things. Some strange, some scary, and many quite the opposite. Many, I'd say, were quite beautiful. I've always been a believer in the strange and paranormal. I've never been much of a skeptic. It's hard to be if you've grown up the way I have. When I was little, my mother would often say that she'd find me talking to my grandmother. My grandmother died 3 years before I was born. That is more for background and not something I'll get into. Instead, I'd like to talk about October of 2007. I was working in Central Texas, and around this time we started having some odd happenings around the park. The first really odd encounter was one of our dogs we had, basically a mascot of sorts, started rushing off and would always wind up in the same area, in an open patch of forest. Once there, it would begin barking for about 5 minutes before it stopped and act normal again. This continued on for a week. It was a Wednesday morning when Sally, our dog, ran to the same spot in the woods. I remember it vividly, as upon arrival there were several other unfamiliar dogs in the area, and they all barked in unison toward the sky. This was strange, but 5 minutes later they stopped. About mid-October, this behavior stops abruptly. There are no strange gatherings of the animal kingdom or anything that seemed out of the ordinary. That was until about the end of my shift when I thought I saw someone out of the corner of my eye. I looked closely around the area, but quite simply could not find anyone. So, I headed to the station to clock out. I was the last one out on this day, as my boss at the time was on the vacation. Looking back, I wish I would have been on that as well. What happened next was unnerving, to put it lightly. One of my coworkers came to me the next morning, upon my arrival into work, and complained of a woman who didn't stop staring at her. My first thought was maybe it was a homeless lady, but when I asked for a description of the woman, she sounded straight out of another timeline. She wore a black bonnet, an all-black dress. She looked dressed for church and seemed to carry a Bible. That was strange, but I thought maybe it was a Bible thumper. They exist everywhere, and some of them can be quite judgmental. My coworker seemed genuinely scared, which was strange as she wasn't easily startled. I told her I'd go with her, and we would check on the area where this woman stood. Well, we head up, and to my shock, we find ourselves in the same spot the dogs used to be. In the center of this tree line, there stood a woman, clear as day, matching the description given to me by the coworker. I approached the woman and asked her why she was staring down my coworkers. The woman didn't say a word, and that's when I noticed her eyes. The eyes of this woman were pure black. It was the darkest black I've ever seen, and as I looked into them, I felt the need to cry. I am not sure why or how to explain it, but before I knew it, I was crying and overcome with emotion. I wasn't just crying like a normal cry. I was crying and my legs were like jelly. I was hysterical. I soon fell to my knees and began crying more. I'm not sure how to help you realize how strange this whole situation was. The more I cried, the more the woman stared. At first, her face was stone cold, but after a time, and as I cried more, I saw a smirk grow on her face. All sorts of confused, I tried to stop, but I couldn't. It wasn't long before I noticed some of the dogs we'd previously seen suddenly form up around us. The dogs were growling. I was crying and my coworker was screaming bloody murder. It was a strange feeling, and I'm not sure how to justifiably elicit to you the things going through my mind. I couldn't control my actions. I couldn't think straight. There was just an unending sadness. And then, before I knew it, the dogs were barking and growling at us. At least, I think they were. It was at this point I felt so out of it, and things were so dizzy, I began to notice I no longer perceived anything, if I was awake or dreaming any longer. At the height of my sorrows, everything went blurry. And the next thing I knew, a jogger was waking me up. I awoke with a startle and asked for my coworker, who was still asleep and freaking out. I did my best to wake her up, and after a while, I took her back to the station, after thanking the jogger, who seemed to want an explanation, but I was so confused and also worried that I didn't give one, but left after saying thanks. I remember my coworker was quite hot. I felt her forehead, and she was burning up. I called an ambulance and they took her to the hospital, at which point she was kept there for the next few nights. My coworker was eventually released, but she quit immediately. I tried to get her to stay and even tried to get her to come back, but she just wouldn't. She didn't answer any of my calls after that, and last I heard she moved out of state. I don't know how to explain this woman or the things that happened to my coworker and I. I will say there have been quite a few times people have been up in the area and have been found out cold or babbling to themselves. I feel that area is cursed in some way, as that's the only explanation I can truly come up with. I know that barely makes much sense, but then again, what really does anymore? Was this woman a ghost? Some sort of demon? Is there some sort of plausible and sensible explanation for it? I'm not sure of anything anymore. I'm not sure of how to explain the odd behavior of the dogs either. I still work with park services today, but I refuse to work at that park any longer. From what I understand, no one has turned up dead in that area, but, in my honest opinion, something is wrong with that place.
Oh, that is creepy. Absolutely creepy. We thank our main man, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story here on Spaced Out Radio. And it's time, once again, to bring in the fedora-wearing John Hudson for the unbiased UFO report as we take a look deep.
Streaming on Peacock. It's the girls' trip of a lifetime.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Oh my god, a stingray!
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now.
And there's no party like a housewives party.
I don't give a f. You're not a girl's girl. Why would you say that?
Find out what happens when the forecast brings sunshine and a whole lot of shade.
You are so self-absorbed. It's crazy.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock. 7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Into the UFO world and what is happening around the world on UFOs. Big Bad John, how you doing, buddy?
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
I am good. It's been a good show, a power show, you know, with Sean Forker, Lon Strickler, Brian Bowden on our tribute to Butch Witkowski tonight. And you know what? We're back to normal now. We're back to normal. We got you back. You know, it's good to have you here. Great shows on the weekend on the After Hours show with with Thin Lizzy. As Gemma Jade took the weekend off, she'll be back this coming weekend. And, of course, Big Willie and his beard were looking fantastic as well. So great job, you guys.
Yeah, we had a good time. And it was some great conversation. But, yeah, no, thanks, everyone, for hanging out. And we got some interesting stuff to cover.
Where are we starting tonight?
Well, I didn't know if you got my first joke about it being the week of isotopes. But, no, I was just kidding about that one.
No, I did have a good laugh on that.
Okay, good, yeah. Everyone, the first set of notes I sent them said it was isotope week, you know, and I basically made them think that was what I was going to be talking about all week. So anyway, just so you guys can laugh with me. First topic is it's essentially about who many are aware and perhaps have a strong feeling of is Jim Semivan. Jim Semivan, who was on Coast to Coast last night, and you know what? Because of everything I want to report, I want to just read a quick little blurb about who he is, just really quickly. Okay?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So Jim retired. So Jim Semivan retired in 2007 after a 25-year career in the Central Intelligence Agency's clandestine services. Okay, at the time of his retirement, he was a member of the CIA's Senior Intelligence Service. Jim served multiple overseas and domestic tours along with senior management positions in the CIA and headquarters. He is a recipient of the agency's Career Intelligence Medal. He also, which isn't covered here, is he also went back at one point and joined the Science and Technology Division as opposed to the clandestine services, and did work in that unit as well. And so this is a man with a tremendous history. He's a real a real diamond to the country. I mean, these are the kind of Americans we want to to see in these intelligence roles and so forth. And so this is a man that has set some credibility and so forth. Now, true, he's got some history in this world, so some people may not have a huge following for him anymore. But the point is a very professional, very methodical, very intelligent individual. And last night he was on Coast to Coast. Now, Dave, you help me with this. Am I correct to say that a good night on Coast to Coast, they might reach 10 million ears?
Yeah, about there.
About there, give or take. Okay, cool. Okay, so roughly 10 million people, right, heard from this, 25-year CIA veteran that in the past, him and his wife had a abduction event. Now, to his mind, he wasn't abducted. He uses that term because he's been told it is a classic abduction scenario. In his memory, it all happened inside the bedroom of his house. His wife was present. It was not pleasant. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, to me, humorlessly, it was not that upsetting when it happened. It became very upsetting over time because of the way everyone else reacted to it, and because of the things he found out afterwards. But my point is that here you have a decorated, veteran of our intelligence services getting on the radio and saying to 10 million people that perhaps not abductions, but at minimal experiences, if I can say that more poorly, are something that is actually happening to Americans. And that, to me, is a watershed moment. I mean, I was blown away that Jim said this.
I think this was groundbreaking radio. I had known about Jim Semivan being taken for a couple of years. Melinda Leslie had been public with his experience, but we hadn't heard from the man at all. We do know his relationship with George Knapp, of course, going back to the Skinwalker Ranch days and the ties to Robert Bigelow. But I mean, the fact that now we have him coming out publicly and admitting that he is an experiencer, I mean, does this now change the game, John? Because Phase 3, I've always been told that this is going to be in 3 phases. Number 1 was to announce the phenomena is there. That's what the New York Times article did, along with the 3 videos. That's where we heard about it could be Russia, it could be China. Phase 2, they phased out Russia and China and started talking about this is from somewhere else. We're not sure where this is coming from. Maybe in space. And that's when all of a sudden earlier or late last year we heard Bill Nelson from NASA, and people speaking at the Pentagon, all of a sudden talking about space, UFOs, and extraterrestrials. And now all of a sudden out of the blue, Jim Semivan decides to start talking about his alien abduction. And
I know.
It just...
Sorry, no, please continue.
No, it just, I find the timing awesome, but very weird as well.
Oh, no. Well, okay. Well, go ahead and finish with your thought. I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Please, go ahead.
So my argument would be that this is anything but coincidental. Look, they've been trying to get Jim Semivan on Coast to Coast for years upon years upon years. And this is the very first time, now, while we're in this quiet period and all this stuff's going on, this is the one time that Jim Semivan decides to get on Coast to Coast only with George Knapp and dump this, as well as hint at a bunch of other stuff, right? Because there are other things that he touched on, which I wasn't planning on covering, but I'll cover this one thing in particular, is that one of the reasons why he hasn't come into a determination yet for what he thinks happened to him and his wife is because he's still being studied. And he is currently in an active study where him and his wife are being looked at. And he talked about teams coming to his house and drawing blood and doing other tests. So this is an active investigation, which is another kind of surprising point for one, that it's happening, but two, that he's being so public about it, right? And the thing is that for our community, this does almost nothing, because everyone already has decided how they feel about Jim Semivan or not, right? And so if you like him, okay, and if you don't, okay, whatever. But for the rest of the world and for the rest of America, for all the normal people, this is a CIA veteran that is getting up and talking about an interaction with a non, earthly being of some sort, in the same way that you would normally hear him talking about terrorism, right? That's a fundamental change. Now how long will it take that echo to reach anywhere? Who knows? But to me, historians will look back at this as an important moment.
Well, let me tell you something that I know, John, just from being an experiencer myself. If this was a one and done scenario, there would be no need to do or continue an investigation. What that statement that you repeated of Jim Semivan stating that he and his wife are still being investigated tells me, as an experiencer, that they are still having experiences.
And I can't say that I'm surprised to hear you say that, but I appreciate you doing so. I wouldn't have picked up on that myself, and to me that sounds like it might have some accuracy to it. So yeah, so I pensively I would tend to agree with you without data.
I want to ask you another question about this, John, because this is a very important topic here. All right. Is this potentially related to the Stars Academy? And let me follow up with that for a second, because Jim Semivan is one of the co-founders with Tom DeLonge on the TTSA. The TTSA has not recovered at all from the loss of Steve Justice, Chris Mellon, and of course Luis Elizondo when they departed just over a year ago. Could this be the start of some sort of resurrection of the Stars Academy by Jim Semivan now stepping up and saying, "This has happened to me," publicly?
Okay. Okay. So first off, yeah. So there was a portion of this 2-hour segment that was dedicated to a TTSA update, and that was going to be my second item, and so we can get into that in a second. And Jim does talk about that. So there's probably some accuracy to what you said, that there's some tie-in to what's going on at TTSA and what Jim's doing. However, what he talked about going on at TTSA doesn't seem like it was an immediately recent happening, so I don't know if that would have had any relationship to the triggering of it, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah, there's definitely some challenge there. But would you like to get into what he said?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you wanted to continue on with it, but we can bounce around.
We'll bounce around. We got 2 minutes left.
So basically, on the panel that you had on Friday, I missed the very beginning of it, but the context of the conversation, as I understood it, was that you guys were debating, were essentially discussing the end of TTSA, and so then you get Jim Semivan getting on Coast to Coast, Friday night, and saying that that TTSA is by no means gone, and that they have simply changed the name of the company to the Stars Inc. They've decided to suspend all science and research-related activities, as we'd heard before, with the exception of the CREDA, which will continue to go forward. And they have, I forget what the numbers they had, but they had multiple movies and multiple TV projects currently in progress. And essentially the focus is going to be on media for now, until they can raise enough money that they can look into other things again. But from the way it sounded, Jim Semivan is still fully invested. The company moves forward as a media investment, and to me, it's kind of a logical phase for TTSA to go through. But to your earlier point, we don't know what the specific topics are of the media platforms that TTSA is working on, and I would not be at all surprised if it turns out that one of them ends up tying in really nicely to Jim's personal story.
Well, that would make sense because TTSA, or the To the Stars Inc., whatever they're known as now, does need a facelift. They do. It's more than just a name change. They have investors that they still have to answer to. And, when you have those type of investors, there are probably people saying, what's happening with my money? Some, they may not worry about it. Others are going to be very, very upset because they watch every penny they spend. And this is where I can see where we could, see a rebranding of the To the Stars Inc. And we're going to get more into this when we return from the break here, as we are going to continue with the fedora-wearing John Hudson on the Unbiased UFO Report here on Spaced Out Radio. To the Stars Inc., Jim Semivan, and whatever else we can dig up for the Unbiased UFO Report when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we are clear.
Yeah, if anyone has ever listened to any Coast to Coast George Knapp interviews, this would be one to check out. It was a hell of a night.
I'm not gonna lie, I was working on other stuff and I missed it, and I'm kind of pissed off about it. I'd wanted to listen to that tonight or last night too.
Well, yeah, no, I missed the first hour because of the show I was doing. I was really bummed too because that interest song really gets me going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to listen to it later though.
That's good stuff, man.
Oh yeah, really, really good stuff. Yeah, no, it was amazing.
You got
we can talk about the Ramirez stuff too.
Do you want to talk about the Ramirez stuff or the Who's Lou?
Oh, I don't even know what the Who's Lou thing is.
Oh, that's the documentary on Lou Elizondo that's been put out.
Oh, right. I heard about this.
Some are calling it a hit piece. Some are calling it fascinating. Others don't know where to stand. We can go any direction you want.
Well, I know absolutely nothing about that
all
one.
Right.
So we can talk about it, but it'll be all you.
Well,
so
yeah. Apparently there are some clips of our show in there, or the interview that I did with Lou in there.
Cool.
Just for the record, I was never asked if they could use our interview in there, and I do not endorse the movie.
I don't care what the topic is. I don't care who it's about. I don't. Anytime anyone does a movie like this in any way, shape, or form, I'm so damn suspicious. Because for anyone to put this much effort into harming someone's credibility, it's astounding. I mean, it's like how could anyone have the patience and the dedication to do that sort of? I mean, blows my mind.
Oh, I hear you, man.
Blows my mind. And typically you only see it in political worlds, right? Like you'll see these hit movies that are done on presidential candidates and so forth, where they're like, especially like the year of a presidential election, like they'll do like a documentary on one of the Clintons or someone else, right? They'll try to push some narrative or or try to bring some story to light that we didn't know before. And sometimes they have something of value into them. My experience, they're usually not even worth the film they're printed on.
All right, we got about 2 minutes here. Reminder to everyone that you can sign up for our Vegas trip by going to info@spacedoutradio.com, letting us know if you're going to be able to make it. I believe Eric with a K is going to be there. If we are his first favorite show, like he says, then there may be an Eric with a K sighting at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, April 22nd to 24th. You can't miss him. He's like 7'6". And he wears dark sunglasses at all times of the day and night because he does believe he is the American incarnation of Corey Hart. So make sure you check it on out, April 22nd to 24th. We want to get you a swag bag if you're one of the first 50 people. I think we got about 25 to 30 now signed up for the Vegas trip. Very exciting. Big thank you tonight to Nicola, Tim, Ack, Lori, Stephen, Thomas Times 2, Larry, Phil, Patrick, Tits McGee, Fabster, Horror Realm, Grantavius, Jason, Dirt Road, Blue Jersey, Ghost Dragon, Surf Jer, Kira, Steve, Magnus, Dan, Dry Toast, and Brian. Here we go with the final half hour, everyone. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio, Instagram @SpacedOutRadioShow, and now on TikTok @SpacedOutRadio. For the final time tonight, we continue on with the Unbiased UFO Report. We are joined by the fedora-wearing John Hudson. John, welcome back. And right before the break, we were talking about the newest incarnation of the To the Stars Academy, which is now called To the Stars Inc., according to Jim Semivan, who just came out with George Knapp last night, stating his own encounter or encounters with extraterrestrials with him and his wife.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, his event is not something that was unheard of. Anyone who's been researching this field for a long time.
7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
The party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock. Peacock streaming the world's biggest sporting events, exclusive originals, and the latest movies. This February, we've got Super Bowl 56 and the 2022 Winter Olympics. Peacock Original Bel Air from executive producer Will Smith and Westbrook Studios. Damn! Plus tons of new movies every week, including Marry Me, starring Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson. In theaters and streaming only on Peacock Valentine's Day. With all this and so much more to love, sign up now at peacocktv.com.
I'm sure has at one point or the other run into at least somewhat of a description of what happened. And so we had some idea, but as you said, this is the first time I've ever heard him talk about it personally.
Okay, so the fact that he is one of the founders of the To the Stars Academy, along with Tom DeLonge, and given his illustrious position that he had in some very top secret type groups within the United States government, how is this going to play out for the goals of the future for the To the Stars Academy?
Oh, well, I mean, the thing is that, so what they fail to realize is that the only thing in this universe that's harder to do than disclosure is to produce a company that can produce successful media properties. And that's what it really comes down to. Unfortunately, it all depends on the success of what they produce. If they produce a couple really good movies or a couple really good properties, they get out some real hit content, and now everything changes. But it's going to be all about the reception of their content. That's all that matters. Now, if they take off because of a content hit, then having Jim Semivan aboard is all roses, because all he does is add credibility to their team, and he brings stories, and he brings letters to his name, and he brings affiliations to other groups and so forth. He could not smell better in a situation where TTSA is doing well. However, whether TTSA does well or not, I would argue has less to do with the quality of the content they create, and has more to do with just dumb luck. So I don't really know what their chances are.
Can we still consider them...
What makes a good movie, right?
Okay, but can we still consider them a player in the UFO world? Or are those days done?
Look, the whole idea that any of us have ever looked at a company or a group and given personhood to that company and declared that company or that group to be valuable or not valuable was all of our own issues, and we should have never done it in the first place. What we've always been talking about is what are the individual contributions of the individual members of each of these units, right? And I would argue that right now TTSA still has a team of people that have the potential to be extremely influential. Now, whether they will be or not, that's up to them.
What do they need to change in order to get or save some face in the public eye?
Well, it depends. If their goal is as stated, and that is to shelve science and research for the foreseeable future and just focus on media, then I would argue that they need to disappear, and they need to focus on producing great content, and that's it, and that's all that matters. Their content is all that matters. The quality of the content is all that matters, and that is what will make or break them. And that's it. That's all that matters. There is no remaking them. There is no PR. There is no rebranding. There is no ad campaign. It's all about the content. And now the content can be augmented or harmed by a PR campaign, for sure. They could mess it up. They could get really good content, and then they could blow it by doing a bad, I've seen people do it. It could happen. But it's all about the content. And until we all see Monsters of California, who knows?
Wow. Let's move on to another topic here, John. Gary Nolan, we talked a lot about him last week. And then it was announced today that he is now an official member of the Galileo Project put together by Avi Loeb. This comes on the heels of Gary Nolan's work partner and mentor Jacques Vallée joining the Galileo Project a week or so ago. How important is this for the Galileo Project to get someone as credible as Gary Nolan on their team?
I would argue that several of the previous members that have been announced have all been for different reasons. I would argue that Jacques Vallée, and to much more of a degree, Dr. Gary Nolan, these are actually really strong players for this team. And I don't mean to say that anyone else is not a strong player. What I mean is that if I was staffing for the team that Avi Loeb is trying to make, these are people like these two are folks that you would actually want involved. You would really want to have involved. I mean, Gary Nolan, I mean, I it's hard for me because I live right near Stanford, right? I went to Stanford for part of my career, my education. I mean, like, I love Stanford. That's where Gary Nolan is. He's an awesome dude, and Gary's doing amazing work.
What can Gary Nolan and his own studies at Stanford bring to the Galileo project compared to, say, other people?
Oh, well, because of the fact that essentially, one is that unlike Vallée, Gary Nolan is actually actively working at a top-named university, and so essentially, if any of the work that Nolan does with Galileo results in a paper being produced with Nolan's name on it, that's a big deal for everybody, right? That potentially if it's a well-received paper. Yeah, I mean it's the problem is that I still don't have a clear picture exactly what the jurisdiction is of Galileo. If Galileo's jurisdiction remains things in deep space, then I think it's a little harder to find a good place for Gary. I think that if it starts to include anything having to do with experiencers or reports or contact or recovery of debris or recovery of craft, then there's no one better.
Do you think, though, his name lends to more credibility in this field?
That's what's hard for me to say, and that's what I was trying to get to before when I made the comment about my relationship at Stanford. I wasn't trying to brag or anything, but just that it's just it's hard not to be a huge fan of Stanford and so forth. But I mean Gary's I don't really know for sure. I mean the type of work Gary is doing is very hands-on, dedicated, real science. And so I don't really know whether Galileo would end up with any material that he could really apply his skills to. But what I also don't know is my opinion of Dr. Gary Nolan somehow exaggerated because of my physical proximity to Stanford and the fact that I took some classes. Like, I don't know. My point is, I don't know how well known Gary Nolan is. In my mind, he's very well known, and his name would bring a lot of credibility to Galileo. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm wondering if I just have a horrible bias for Stanford. And the truth of the matter is that most people haven't really heard of him. So I don't really know that for sure.
Well, I think he does. And I think more people were going to learn the impact that somebody like Gary Nolan can have. I'm a big fan of Gary Nolan's. I really am. And, the fact that recently we found out that he put $70,000 of his own money into his own research, I mean, and that's all regarding ET contact, the metals, and everything that goes along with it. He's doing a lot of brain studies on people who claim to be experiencers. I mean, this. Well,
remember, he was the guy in the beginning that did the study on that little Egyptian mummy. Right. I mean, it's like he's been doing good work for a while now.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and you know what? We should all be, really truly impressed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will go as far as to say is right now, looking at this whole field and so forth, my personal opinion is that there is absolutely nobody more important to this entire thing than Dr. Gary Nolan at this point in time.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on that. And John, any other topics you want to hit before we got about 2 minutes?
Yeah, the one thing I just wanted to say is that here on Coast to Coast last night, we had two 25-year CIA veterans that both in their talks absolutely confirmed their belief that contact is real, that that the phenomenon is real, that we don't know what it is, but that we damn well better figure out what it is. And to have two CIA veterans both state that unequivocally for 10 million people to hear, that's something. That really is something.
It really is. And it shows the magnitude of their message getting out. And hopefully they can find some time for little old us in the near future, because I would love to talk to Jim Semivan. And I would love to talk to Gary Nolan. I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times, and it's different when you're actually getting to put questions his way.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Stanford's local to me. I'm one of these days I'm gonna go over there and try to meet the guy because I admire him so much.
I agree, John. Thank you for a very successful, unbiased UFO report. We'll talk to you in a couple of days.
Thank you, and Dave, thank you for that beautiful thing you did. That was a beautiful thing you guys did. That was really, really nice, and that was awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
So thank you much.
Butch deserved it.
Thank you, everybody.
Butch deserved
it. Absolutely.
Absolutely, John. John Hudson with the Unbiased UFO Report. He'll be back in a couple of days. Let's get to Shirky Poo's news. Yes, it's always how it ends, isn't it? Well, let's get to North Korea, shall we? Because, you know, when it comes to Kim Jong-un and the Kim family, there's always some major interest of stories going on. This time, it has to do with going to the bathroom. Yes, Kim Jong-un's poo is too good for a public loo. The North Korean leader isn't taking any chances with his bathroom breaks. In fact, if he has to go, he can go at any time because the dictator, who reportedly only uses his own commode, is set to travel with his very own personal toilet. Imagine that. To prevent enemies or distractors from learning about the state of his health, Jong-un protects his numbers 1 and 2. The portable toilet is kept in one of the cars in the leader's official motorcade. It is heavily guarded, and anyone caught using it without permission could be sentenced to death. It would also be unthinkable for Jong-un to use a regular public loo as well. The restrooms are not only in Kim Jong-un's personal train, but whatever small or mid-sized cars that he is traveling with, and even specialized vehicles that are designed for mountainous terrain or snow. There are multiple vehicles within the convoy so that the people cannot tell which one he is in, and there is a separate car that acts just as his restroom. Hey, when you gotta go, because let's face it, there are millions upon millions of people in this world who really, really want to get the DNA of Kim Jong-un and make it their own, or at least a putty statue of him. A mother's love is priceless, and a Texas woman learned the hard way when she tried to purchase a child at Walmart for $500,000. Yeah. How psychotic is this lady? No, the department store hasn't started carrying great value brand babies. Instead, according to court documents, this woman tried to actually buy a toddler from another shopper. Of course, buying or even attempting to buy children isn't exactly legal. So Rebecca Lynette, Taylor, who's 49 years old, got arrested for her antics on January 18th. The bizarre chain of events is detailed in an affidavit of probable cause filed at the Crockett Police Department. On January 13th, Taylor, along with an unnamed other woman, was shopping at the Walmart. According to the report, the two women approached a third woman who still remains anonymous as she waited in the self-checkout line with her children. She had a baby in the car seat while her 1-year-old sat in the cart. Taylor allegedly approached the woman and began commenting on her son's blonde hair and blue eyes. What could have been a nice compliment to a mother quickly took a creepy turn as Taylor asked how much the mother would be willing to sell the boy. The mother initially thought Taylor was just making some kind of weird joke and tried to laugh at the offer, but it turned out that Taylor was dead serious. She told the mother that she had $250,000 cash in her car. She was ready to give it all to the mother if she allowed Taylor to walk off with her son. Naturally, the mother declined. She said no amount of money would do. Taylor, however, wasn't about to give up. She wanted that baby boy. She kept asking the mother and pestering to reconsider, saying that she wanted to purchase a baby for a long time. The bizarre justification did nothing to change the mother's mind. At this point, she told Taylor to just get the hell away. Things got even weirder, though, when the woman accompanying Taylor suddenly asked the mother what her son's name was. The mother naturally didn't share that information, but Taylor and her friend still started calling the baby boy by his name. Taylor and the other woman hadn't had any prior contact with the child. As far as the mother was aware, she had no idea how they found out his name. Eventually, the two women stopped pestering and left the store. She waited for a while after they left before walking outside and heading towards her car. Then things got worse. Once in the parking lot, Taylor began screaming at the mother, saying if she wouldn't take $250,000 for him, then would she give or accept $500,000 because she wanted him and she was going to take him. The mother quickly locked her child in the car as Taylor kept yelling at her from a black SUV parked next to the mother's vehicle. Taylor repeated that she wanted to have the boy and would pay $500,000 for him. She must have eventually realized it wasn't going to happen, and then police were called, arrests were made, and this is just damn weird. Weird. A Florida teacher who discovered most of her students had never seen snow actually gave them a surprise by having her sister mail the class a snowman. Robin Hughes, what a beautiful teacher, a special ed teacher in South Shore Academy in Tampa, said she learned that only 2 of her kindergarten students had ever seen snow. So she contacted her sister Amber, up in Kentucky. So I said, I want you to make me a snowman. I want you to overnight him to me so we can see if he can make it to school. How cool is this? Anyhow, the snowman made it. Yeah, they put him in a package, wrapped him up in foil, put him in ice packs, sealed him up in a styrofoam box, and off he went to the local UPS store. And then she got to present her class with the snowman. Anything I can do as a teacher to bring joy to the classroom and also teach them a little something, then it makes it all worth it, she said. And my sister was just the greatest partner in crime to help me do that. She was perfect. She said the students were gratified and the looks of pure joy on their faces was well worth it. That is absolutely amazing. And finally tonight, quickly, in Missouri, police officers are trying to find the owner of an unusual piece of misplaced property, a donkey. Yeah, the donkey was on the loose, got called into 911 that there's a donkey around, but they can't find the owner. So, literally, they're going to send him to the SPCA in order to maybe try and find him a new home. Thank you so much to everybody for listening on in to Shirky Poo's News, to Fedora John's Unbiased UFO Report, Swamp Dweller with another amazing spooky story, and of course our good friends Brian Bowden, Sean Forker, and phantomsandmonsters.com, Lon Strickler, for taking part in a beautiful tribute to the legendary Butch Witkowski on Strange Days. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, and the Space Travelers Club, and Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
Welcome back, Bayside.
They're taking school spirit
The fun's just getting started.
to the max.
This is gonna be awesome.
Saved by the Bell. New season streaming now.
Let's do this, baby.
Only on Peacock. 7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now. Only on Peacock.